Chapter 1408. Cunning. Song Qing-shu was speechless. Am I that bad? Ask yourself, compared to Brother Jing, are you considered sly and cunning? Huang Rong rolled her eyes at him. Song Qing-shu sternly said, in terms of being a gentleman and being selfless, I am indeed not as good as Hero Gua. But in terms of expelling the Tartars and restoring China, I'm not the least bit inferior to Hero Gua. Huang Rong was stunned by his words. After a long time, she sighed and said, not only is he not bad, Brother Jing is not as good as you in this aspect. This had always been a knot in her heart. She and her husband had been defending Xianyang for so many years, and Gu Jing was so busy that he had almost no time for his family. Although they had repelled the Mongols several times, she knew that if they continued to defend passively, the Mongols would break through Xianyang sooner or later. When that time came, the fate of her family could be imagined. Even though the world called her a female Zhuge, and at the same time she was aware of the gloomy ending, she was still powerless to change it. All she could do was try her best to delay the arrival of that day, until Song Qing-shu suddenly rose to prominence in the past 2 years. In just a few years, he had gained a firm foothold among the major powers and seized nearly half of the country from the Manchurian Qing. He had dealt a huge blow to the arrogance of the grassland empires. If she could get his help, she might really be able to change the tragic fate of her family. Because of this, she was more tolerant of Song Qing-shu than most men. Otherwise, she would not be the kind of woman who would get entangled with him because of the accident that night. Of course, there was a premise to all this. After all they had been through, she did not hate him. Otherwise, she would have used the same tricks she used on Ouyang-ku. Rong, I'll be proud to hear you praise me like this, Song Qing-shu said humbly, but he could not hide his pride. Stop talking nonsense. Think about how we are going to get out of here. Huang Rong was also speechless. She thought to herself that he could clearly be considered an overlord of a region, but sometimes he was like a child. However, it was precisely because of this childishness that she would sometimes completely let down her guard. Actually, it's not difficult to get out. What's difficult is how to get out without alerting the guards in the palace, Song Qing-shu said with a bitter smile. I don't know how many people saw me enter the palace today. If things get out of hand, they'll quickly suspect me. What's more, there's a martial art competition going on right now. I have to return to the scene. Huang Rong's eyes lit up, and she asked happily, Brother Jing is here too? Song Qing-shu pursed his lips. Aren't you afraid that I'll be disappointed? Huang Rong pursed her lips into a smile and snorted. I care about my husband. Why are you so disappointed? Song Qing-shu was speechless for a moment. He could only answer, Brother Gu didn't come. You went missing, and he has been looking for you like crazy. He has no intention of participating in the competition. Jia Sherdao had to let Gusum Murong Fu take his place. Then he roughly explained the whole thing. Huang Rong stomped her feet and couldn't help but say, Brother Jing is so stupid. In her eyes, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as he won the competition, he would barely be able to enter the upper echelons of the Southern Song dynasty. He would be able to mobilize resources, and he would be able to do many more things than when he was a commoner in Xianyang. By then, he wouldn't be as powerless as he was in Xianyang. Hero Gua is very affectionate. Don't blame him, Song Qing-shu said with a bitter smile. Of course I know that Brother Jing is affectionate. Huang Rong sighed. But this opportunity is too good. It would be a pity to give it up like this. Actually, he has no choice but to give it up. This time, Zhao Go clearly doesn't want him to win, Song Qing-shu explained. Huang Rong's expression darkened. Actually, when I realized that this was the palace, I had already guessed it. I just didn't dare to continue thinking about it. Now, it seems that it's mainly because of the Jia family. Rong, you really are a female Zhuge. With just this bit of information, you can almost guess the whole thing. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. What's the use of being a female Zhuge? As the saying goes, it's easy to know the heavens, but it's hard to go against them. Now that the emperor can't tolerate Brother Jing, I suddenly feel that defending Xianyang all these years is inexplicably ridiculous. The more Huang Rong spoke, the angrier she got. She was not a person who was loyal to the emperor, so her tone was naturally full of resentment toward Zhao Guo. Not using people like you can only mean that Zhao Guo is blind. Song Qingshu looked at her affectionately. Why don't you come to the Golden Snake Camp? I'll let Brother Guo be the Grand Marshal of the army and let you be his advisor. You can fully display your talents. Feeling the other's passionate gaze, Huang Rong's heart skipped a beat. She instinctively refused. We won't go to your place. Isn't that sending sheep to the tiger's mouth? The second half of her sentence was almost inaudible. Song Qingshu sighed. Actually, even if you are willing, Hero Guo may not be willing. His ambition is to help the people. Now, if you ask him to abandon the people of Xiangyang City, he probably won't be able to do it. Huang Rong smiled bitterly. That's just his personality. All I can do is support him. Dong, 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 the faint sound of drums came from afar. Song Qingshu hurriedly said, looks like the competition has already started. We have to hurry and leave. I'll have to trouble you. Here's a set of attendant clothes. You can change into them first. As Prince Qi, he was qualified to bring a few attendants into the palace. He planned to disguise Huang Rong and sneak out of the palace with him later. When entering the palace, everyone is registered. When there's an extra person by your side, how can the palace guards not notice? Huang Rong quickly realized the potential risks. Don't worry. Have you forgotten about the soul transfer method? When the time comes, we can secretly use it on the person who is investigating. He won't stop us. Song Qingshu smiled. Huang Rong nodded secretly. She also knew the soul transfer method. It was no problem for her to confuse an ordinary person. Song Qingshu's martial arts were 10 times better than hers. It should not be a problem for him to deal with a palace guard. Suddenly realizing something, Huang Rong blushed. Go back for a while. Song Qingshu glanced at the clothes in her hand. He smiled and spread his hands. Take a look yourself. Is there any place in the whole room where we can go? After all, this room was used to imprison her. All the irrelevant items had already been taken away. They wanted to see everything as soon as they entered the room. So, they could not go back even if they wanted to. Then, turn around. Huang Rong suddenly thought of something. She quickly added, no, you have to cover your eyes too. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Ronger, are you serious? We are in danger now. People can break in at any time. Do you want me to cover my eyes at this time? Huang Rong blushed. She realized that this request was indeed a little inappropriate. But if he did not cover his eyes, she would not be at ease. Ronger, this is urgent. Don't waste time. Song Qingshu then muttered. Besides, it's not like I haven't seen it before. This sentence instantly made Huang Rong frown. Song Qingshu hurriedly turned around. Don't worry. I won't look. You promise not to look back? Huang Rong quietly looked into his eyes. I promise. Song Qingshu raised his hand. He looked like he was swearing. Well, I believe you for the time being. Huang Rong bit her lip. After hesitating for a long time, she finally began to change her clothes. Should I be a gentleman or not? Song Qingshu couldn't help but start an intense psychological struggle when he heard the voice behind him that made him daydream. Ah! At this moment, Huang Rong suddenly exclaimed behind him. What's wrong? Song Qingshu subconsciously turned around. Unexpectedly, what he saw was Huang Rong sitting on the bed, neatly dressed and sneering at him. I know your words are not reliable. Huang Rong glared at him angrily. Song Qingshu felt wronged. I thought something happened to you. Huang Rong said angrily. There are only the two of us in the room. What could happen to me? Didn't you want to take the opportunity to look at me? Look at me? Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. No wonder everyone says that Rong is smart. Can you not be so scheming? Who told you to have bad intentions? Huang Rong proudly snorted. Turn around. Don't look back this time. Fine, fine, fine. Even if you take off your clothes and seduce me to bed now, I won't look back. Song Qingshu said angrily. Nothing good comes out of a dog's mouth. Huang Rong blushed and spat. She carefully looked at him and found that he really had no intention of looking back. Then she began to change her clothes. However, she still did not feel at ease changing behind him. She looked around and finally climbed onto the bed. Her whole body shrunk under the quilt before she began to undress. She wanted to change her clothes under the quilt. Even if he turned his head, he would not be able to see anything. Thinking of this, Huang Rong slightly raised the corner of her mouth, showing a trace of a proud smile. "Dr. Li, this way, please." At this time, the sound of the door opening suddenly came. The smile on Huang Rong's face instantly froze. Seeing that the person outside was about to come in, Song Qingshu's figure flashed and went back to the quilt again. At this time, Huang Rong had already taken off her clothes, and her whole body was like a smooth mermaid. As soon as Song Qingshu entered the bed, it was inevitable that he would come into contact with her skin. A burst of soft and supple touch came, and at the same time, the bed was filled with a fragrant fragrance that was like orchid and musk. Huang Rong's skin instantly floated a layer of rose-like blush. When she was about to lose her temper, the person outside had already come in. She had no choice but to pull the quilt to cover her exposed skin. Only her head was exposed outside the quilt. In this way, it was inevitable that she would have body contact with the other man in the quilt, especially that bastard did not have any intention of avoiding her. Instead, he became even more aggressive. If she was not afraid of being discovered by the person who came in, she was afraid that she would have already been angry and attacked. Her body seems to be a little uncomfortable. Why don't you take a look at her? If anything happens to the child in her stomach, we will all lose our heads. A timid female voice said. It was obviously the voice of the maid who had just left. Chapter 1409. As to why the palace maid was so worried about Huang Rong's health, it was easy to understand. Zhao Go probably just didn't want Gu Jing to take up the position in the Sichuan army and didn't want anything to happen. If Huang Rong had a miscarriage because of his actions this time, it would force Gu Jing to rebel. Once the news got out, the royal family's prestige would be gone as well. Because Huang Rong had gone to bed so early just now, and she had said she wasn't feeling well, the more the palace maid thought about it, the more worried she became. If something happened to Huang Rong, she would lose her life. She quickly called for the imperial doctor. Even if she made Huang Rong angry, she couldn't care less. Right now, Huang Rong wasn't just angry, she was also embarrassed. She had tried so hard to defend herself, but she was still taken advantage of. "Madam, please extend your hand for me to take your pulse," the imperial doctor said when he saw Huang Rong's eyes were open. Huang Rong's face reddened. She had just taken off her clothes. If she extended her hand, wouldn't he see her body? The palace maid saw that Huang Rong didn't move and became anxious. She sat on the side of the bed and wanted to lift the blanket to take her hand out. Even though this was a bit rough, Huang Rong was a prisoner. It was okay to offend her a little. Seeing that the maidservant was about to lift the blanket, Huang Rong thought about how she would look naked with Song Qingshu. Her heart instantly leaped in her throat. Luckily, Song Qingshu suddenly jumped out of the blanket. The palace maid and the imperial doctor didn't have time to see anything before they fainted. Song Qingshu moved the two of them to the side so that they wouldn't make a sound if they fell. Only then did he turn around and say apologetically, "I was in a hurry just now, so I hope Ronger won't take offense." Huang Rong blushed and sat on the bed with the blanket wrapped around her. Her eyes were full of anger. Was it really in a hurry? Song Qingshu was startled. "What do you mean?" Huang Rong smiled coldly. "Because my inner strength was sealed, my hearing isn't as good as before. But with your high martial arts, how could you have waited until the two of them walked to the door before you realized?" Song Qingshu's eyebrows twitched. Then he smiled bitterly and said, "Rong, you're really smart. I can't even hide this from you." It turned out that he had indeed heard the commotion of the two of them coming over. Originally, he wanted to hide in advance, but he changed his mind at the last moment and wanted to go with the flow. Who knew that Huang Rong would see through him at a glance? Huang Rong's face was full of anger. "Song, you said you wouldn't disturb my life. What are you doing now?" Song Qingshu sighed. "I just wanted to be close to you. Who told you to be so rude to me? I had no choice but to do this." "You." Hearing his words, Huang Rong was furious. She said coldly, "If you are rude to me again, I will tell Brother Jing directly." Song Qing-shu held his breath and said, "You won't. In this way, the matter of the Jin kingdom will definitely be exposed. Rong, you are so smart that you won't do something so impulsive." Huang Rong was expressionless. "It's better than being pestered by you for the rest of my life. I have already let Brother Jing down before, and I don't want to let him down again. What's more, I believe in Brother Jing's character. He will definitely forgive me and protect me for the rest of my life." Song Qing-shu stared at her eyes carefully, trying to judge how much of what she said was true. In the end, all he saw was the determination in her eyes. Suddenly, his stubbornness also rushed out. He snorted and said, "Ronger, don't force me. At worst, I will take this opportunity to hide you in a place where no one can find you and play imprisonment play for the rest of your life." "You!" Huang Rong was so angry that her chest rose and fell rapidly. Although she had never heard of the term imprisonment play, it was not difficult for her to guess the meaning of it with her intelligence. Although the possibility of this was very small, Huang Rong really did not dare to take the risk. She was worried that if Song Qing-shu really became hot-blooded and imprisoned her in a secret room, becoming his exclusive slave for the rest of his life, she really could not do anything about it. Seeing that she was a little scared, Song Qing-shu snorted and then walked to the side and began to take off the maid's clothes. What are you doing?" Huang Rong was a little confused at this time. She thought that he did not want to rape her while she was unconscious. "What do you think I want to do?" Song Qing-shu rolled his eyes and threw the clothes he took off to her. "Put on her clothes." Huang Rong was so scared that she did not react before. Now that she had calmed down, she immediately understood his intention. "But even if I put on her clothes, I will be easily recognized," Huang Rong said worriedly. "I will dress you up a little later, and it should be no problem." Song Qing-shu could have made her look exactly like this maid, but she was not one of his people. In addition, she was too smart. Song Qing-shu was worried that she would speculate something else after seeing the disguise, so he could only make some conventional disguises for her. "Okay then." Huang Rong reached out to take the clothes. A large area of her white skin was instantly exposed to the air. She immediately reacted. "Turn around." This time, Song Qing-shu did not accommodate her. He walked directly to the bed and picked up the clothes for her. "There is not much time. I have been out for so long. I must have aroused the suspicion of someone. I must go back immediately. Hey, let go of me." When the quilt was directly thrown to the side, Huang Rong said angrily and anxiously. Song Qing-shu said lightly, "Don't make trouble. Anyway, I have seen your body from top to bottom. I have touched it and kissed it. Is there a need to be so polite?" He already understood that it was not a wise choice to fight with Huang Rong. It was better to use force. Perhaps it would have a miraculous effect. Huang Rong almost fainted from anger. However, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Her resistance was completely useless. In desperation, she could only keep comforting herself. "Anyway, I have been seen. It does not seem to matter if I see it again." After a while, Song Qing-shu took out a small bronze mirror and placed it in front of her. "It's done. Take a look and see if there are any flaws." After saying that, he began to put on the imperial physician's clothes. Looking at the woman in the mirror, Huang Rong's face revealed a trace of astonishment. She didn't think that after being fiddled with by him, she would actually look somewhat similar to the palace maid. Even her slightly bulging belly was covered by his loose clothes. Although she couldn't hide it from the people close to her, at a glance, the chances of her deceiving them were still very high. Looking at Song Qing-shu, who had begun to disguise himself as the imperial physician, a complicated look flashed through Huang Rong's eyes. Although this man was a bit annoying at times, he was really skilled. After a while, Song Qing-shu also finished his disguise. Then, he took the clothes that Huang Rong had taken off and casually put them on the maid. Then, he stuffed her onto the bed and covered her with a blanket, pretending that Huang Rong was sleeping. As for the imperial physician, Song Qing-shu had originally wanted to put him on the bed as well. However, after considering that it might damage the maid's reputation, he finally put him onto the bed. "In a moment, just lower your head and follow me." Remember to not be serious. Huang Rong's heart trembled. Thinking about the danger that would follow, she became alert. Right now, the most important thing was to safely get out of here. She did not have the time to blame him for what he had just done. Seeing her nervous expression, Song Qingshu smiled and patted her hand. In reality, you don't have to be so worried. With me here, even if we are exposed, I can just take you and kill our way out of the palace. Huang Rong was startled. Suddenly, she felt that the smile of the man in front of her was no longer hateful. Instead, it became even warmer. She suddenly had an urge to deliberately expose her identity and let Song Qingshu take her out of the mountains of knives and seas of fire. That scene would definitely be unforgettable for the rest of her life. However, she quickly extinguished this thought. She knew in her heart that if she was still a young girl and hadn't met Jing Ji, she might really be so willful for once. But now, she was a married woman. Song Qingshu did not know what was going on in Huang Rong's heart. He took a deep breath and first walked out the door. Then, he turned around and imitated the words of the imperial physician. The madam has become ill from worry. In addition, she is pregnant and her body is a bit weak. I will go write a prescription to help with the miscarriage. You can come with me to get the medicine. Huang Rong reacted quickly. She hurriedly lowered her head and imitated the voice of the palace maid. Yes. The nearby guards looked in from the door and saw that Huang Rong was resting on the bed. They did not make things difficult for the two of them. They waved their hands and let them go. Song Qingshu secretly winked at Huang Rong, indicating for her to follow him. Then, he led the way out. Huang Rong's heart jumped to her throat. She was secretly annoyed. This person is really bold. Even at a time like this, he is still so frivolous. The two of them slowly walked out. Seeing that they were about to leave the courtyard, Huang Rong was just about to let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, the leader of the guards behind her shouted, "Wait a moment!" Huang Rong's hair instantly stood on end. She thought, it's over. Are we going to fail at the last moment? At the same time, she secretly complained, I don't know if that bastard did it on purpose or if he forgot. He didn't remove the restriction on her body. The once dignified beggar clan leader is now powerless. Any strong palace maid can subdue her. The more she thought about it, the sadder she felt. This bastard must have done it on purpose. Huang Rong quickly came to her senses. In this way, she could only rely on him. In a dangerous situation, it was easier for her to rely on him and have a good impression of him. What a bastard. What's the matter? Song Qingshu turned around and asked. I didn't call you. The guard didn't even look at him. He walked directly towards Huang Rong. His eyes revealed a trace of fiery desire. Little Chuyer, why do I suddenly find that your figure has become better? You walk with 3 steps, and your buttocks shake and shake. Brother's soul almost flew out of his body. His words were echoed by the surrounding guards. That's right. Brother can't control himself just by looking at your back. Chapter 14:10. Hearing the vulgar whistles around her, Huang Rong suddenly felt ashamed and angry. At this time, she suddenly realized that although Song Qingshu was also like this sometimes, this frivolous to her, compared to these vulgar people, she felt much better. Turn around and let brother see. Seeing that Huang Rong was standing in the same spot, the guard was dissatisfied and walked in front of her with large strides. When he saw her appearance, the guard was first startled, then shocked. Although Song Qingshu's rough version of the disguise was somewhat similar, it would not be able to withstand such a close look from an acquaintance. The guard clearly recognized that she was not the palace maid from before. His hand instantly pressed on the saber at his waist, and his mouth subconsciously opened, wanting to call out. At this time, Song Qingshu suddenly blocked in front of Huang Rong and looked at her with a smile. What happened? The guard was startled, and a trace of confusion flashed through his eyes. His hand on the hilt of the knife gradually loosened. No, nothing, you can go. Song Qingshu faintly smiled and gave Huang Rong a meaningful look. The two of them walked out of the courtyard one after the other. When they turned into a long corridor, Song Qingshu put his arm around her waist and used his lightness kung fu to quickly move around the palace. Only when they arrived at a relatively safe place did Song Qing-shu put down the beauty in his arms. He gently said, "Okay, it's all right now." Huang Rong's face was slightly red, and she unnaturally brushed the hair that had fallen by her ear. "Just now you used the soul-shifting technique." "Yes, I didn't want to have a direct confrontation with those guards, so I could only do this." Song Qing-shu shrugged. Huang Rong, on the other hand, was secretly shocked. In that instant, Song Qing-shu had controlled the mind of a highly skilled guard. Her great soul transfer technique was like the difference between clouds and mud compared to his. "In the future, you're not allowed to use the soul-shifting technique on me." Huang Rong glared at Song Qing-shu with an inexplicable fear in her heart. Song Qing-shu chuckled. "That depends on the situation. If you annoy me, I'll use the soul transfer technique on you and make you love me to death for the rest of your life. You'll become my slave and do shameless things on the bed every day." Why is it getting more and more interesting the more I talk about it? "You bastard." Huang Rong angrily grabbed the hairpin on her head and threw it at him. Song Qing-shu easily dodged the attack and laughed out loud. All right. Quickly take off the palace maid's clothes. Let's return to the martial arts competition hall. Who knows? The victor might have been decided by now." Huang Rong gritted her teeth. She knew that they were not out of danger yet. She could only follow his instructions and take off the palace maid's clothes, revealing the servant's clothes that she had worn before. Song Qing-shu stared at her for a long time. Then he walked over and tied up her messy hair. He then took out a hat to cover her black hair. "And this should be enough. Will I be recognized like this?" Huang Rong pulled the lower edge of the hat and asked guiltily. Just now, when the other's hand stroked her hair, that touch still made her heart palpitate. "Don't worry. Even if Brother Gui came now, he wouldn't be able to recognize you." Song Qing-shu smiled. He took her hand and walked in the direction of the martial arts hall. Song Qing-shu returned to his original appearance. Because of his distinguished status, the guards didn't dare to stop him. As for the attendants behind him, they naturally wouldn't attract attention. At this time, the competition had already reached its climax. Everyone's attention was attracted, so no one noticed the arrival of Song Qing-shu and Huang Rong. After returning to his seat and sitting down, Song Qing-shu arranged for Huang Rong to stand behind him. At the same time, he secretly used secret voice sending to say, "I'll have to trouble you to stand here for a while. When the competition is over and the civil and military officials leave the palace, I'll take the opportunity to take you out." Huang Rong made an almost imperceptible sound. Although her physical strength had weakened after her pregnancy, Song Qing-shu had just released the seal in her body. Now that she had recovered her internal strength, she could stand like this for a while. Seeing that she was fine, Song Qing-shu's attention returned to the two who were competing. It could be seen that Murong Fu had already performed beyond his usual level. From time to time, he used the essence of the sword techniques of various sects, and the connection between sword techniques was also natural. Unfortunately, Ling Hu Chong's 9 strategies beyond the swords were too amazing. The more extraordinary Murong Fu performed, the more exquisite the 9 strategies beyond the swords became. Some of the spectators who had good eyesight were all amazed by the sword techniques of the two, which were really rare in the world. Han Xingzhou saw that Song Qing-shu had come back and greeted him. At this time, seeing that Murong Fu was gradually being forced into a corner, he was even happier. He came over and whispered to Song Qing-shu, "Before, I asked Tianda to show weakness to the enemy." At the beginning, Murong Fu's attacks were like a storm, and Jia Sherdao was very happy to see it. Now that Tianda is gradually exerting his strength, you can see that his eyebrows are furrowed like the character Chuan. How satisfying. Hearing that, Song Qing-shu looked over to Jia Sherdao and found that his face was indeed as gloomy as water. Beside him, Prince Beijing seemed to be explaining something to him. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh secretly. Han Xingzhou usually looked very calm, but now that he had successfully defeated Jia Sherdao, he was as happy as a child. Han Xingzhou said a few words to Song Qing-shu, then sat up straight and began to whisper with other friends around him. Huang Rong took the opportunity to whisper to Song Qingshu, "Humph, if Brother Jing were here, neither of them would be a match for him." That's not necessarily true. Song Qingshu didn't say anything. It shouldn't be a problem for Guo Jing to defeat Murong Fu, but Ling Hu Chang's 9 strategies beyond the swords were too amazing. Combined with the Yi Jing Jing and the Absorbing Stars Grand Method, Guo Jing might not be able to defeat him. At that moment, there was an exclamation in the field. It turned out that when Ling Hu Chang's and Murong Fu's swords met, Ling Hu Chang had used an unexpected angle to knock away his opponent's long sword. He won. Han Xingzhou clapped his hands and laughed. He was about to stand up. Song Qingshu, however, frowned and said, "Not necessarily." Han Xingzhou was stunned and asked subconsciously, "According to our intelligence, Murong Fu is best at swordsmanship. Now that his sword has been knocked away, is he still going to refuse to admit defeat?" Song Qingshu didn't answer. He only pursed his lips and gestured for Han Xingzhou to see for himself. Han Xingzhou looked over with confusion, and his eyes instantly widened. It turned out that after Murong Fu's long sword was knocked away, he didn't look upset at all. Instead, he attacked Ling Hu Chong with his palms flying. After Ling Hu Chong knocked away his opponent's long sword, he thought the fight was over and subconsciously relaxed a little. He didn't expect that his opponent's palm strength would surge like a stormy sea, and its power was even greater than the sword technique he had used before. In a hurry, he was quite embarrassed. If it weren't for his excellent fighting instincts, he would have been injured several times by his opponent. 18 dragon subduing palms? Huang Rong blurted out, her eyes full of shock. Yes, it is indeed 18 dragon subduing palms. Song Qingshu nodded. Among the 9 strategies beyond the swords, Ling Hu Chong was best at the sword-breaking style. Now, facing the 18 dragon-subduing palms, which was also a unique skill of Wulin, Ling Hu Chong couldn't use it well and gradually fell into a disadvantage. How can he know the unique skills of our beggar gang? Huang Rong was shocked. It must be known that 18 dragon-subduing palms and dog-beating staff technique were the secret skills of beggar gang that were not passed on to others. Usually, only a few people, such as the sect leader and the elder who taught their skills, knew all the martial arts in the world. Could it be that Gusu's Murong clan really knew all the martial arts in the world, as the rumors said? Song Qingshu smiled. "I taught him. You taught him." Huang Rong was even more shocked. Song Qingshu didn't say anything. The scene of him teaching Murong Fu 18 dragon-subduing palms appeared in his mind. It turned out that when he first transmigrated, his meridians were all broken, and in the end, he was able to change his fate. Murong Fu had helped him a lot. Unfortunately, the two of them gradually took different paths, and they even began to stand against each other. To settle the debt of gratitude they had for each other in the past, Song Qingshu helped Murong Fu multiple times. In the end, he even gave him the manual for 18 dragon subduing palm. When she saw Song Qingshu's unfathomable expression, Huang Rong sighed in her heart. Big Brother Jing had learned many ultimate techniques, and Song Qingshu knew the most important ones, 90 manual and 18 dragon subduing palm. But those 2 martial arts were not Song Qingshu's most important martial arts. From this, it could be seen just how great the difference between them was. "Qingshu, do you think Tiendo will be okay?" Han Zhuozhou had just been laughing at Jia Sherdao, and now it was his turn. He was also worried. After all, the outcome of this battle would affect the two of them too much. After watching for a while, Song Qingshu answered, "Murong Fu's chance of winning is to suddenly use 18 dragon-subduing palms. Wu Tianda will be caught off guard. It's a pity that he hasn't been able to turn his advantage into a victory. When Wu Tianda recovers, I'm afraid he won't be far from losing." Hearing this, Han Xingzhou let out a sigh of relief. Given Qingshu's martial arts, if he said this, then he must be right. At that moment, Huang Rong was also watching the battle closely. Because she was used to Hong Qigong and Guo Jing's 18 dragon-subduing palms, she felt that something was wrong with Murong Fu. His moves were too fast, and he paid too much attention to the finesse of the moves. She had heard her husband say that the essence of the 18 dragon-subduing palms was in the palm power, not the moves. The palm power had to be fast and slow, and the palm power had to be fast and slow to be considered great. Murong Fu's pursuit of speed had obviously gone astray. At this moment, when Huang Rong heard Song Qingshu's answer to Han Zhuozhou, she couldn't help but admire his eyesight. It should be known that she had faintly felt that Murong Fu was going to lose because she was too familiar with the 18 subduing dragon palms. However, Song Qingshu was able to make such a decisive judgment with just one glance. As expected, not long after Song Qingshu had finished speaking, Ling Huchong noticed that Murong Fu's palm technique had begun to repeat itself. He keenly grasped the opening, and the sword in his hand moved like a flying immortal from the heavens, coming from an impossible angle, pressing against Murong Fu's throat. Murong Fu's body instantly froze, and his expression instantly became extremely ugly. Earlier, he had intentionally knocked the sword out of his hand. Now that his vital point was under control, if the opponent's sword had moved an inch further, he would have been bleeding. Even a 3-year-old child could see who had won and who had lost. The outcome has been decided. Please stop. Receiving a signal from Zhao Go, Ding Dian, who was carrying the imperial weapon, said loudly. Chapter 14:11. Murong Fu did not reply at all. His mind was blank. He thought of all his failures over the years. He had planned to use this chance to turn the tables, but he suffered yet another crushing defeat. After today, everyone would know that he, Gusum Murong Fu, was a general who always lost, and Southern Murong would become a laughingstock in the martial world. The great cause of reviving the country would be a pipe dream. Seeing Murong Fu's grief-stricken expression, Song Qingshu sighed to himself. In this world, the winner takes all. Murong Fu was a top-notch expert in the martial world, and his aptitude for martial arts could be said to be outstanding. But every time he met an opponent, they were all amazing people. He could only sigh at how fate played tricks on him. Next, Zhao Go announced that he would appoint Cheng Song as the Grand Secretary of the Hall of Advisors, as the prefect of Chengdu Prefecture and the administrator of Sichuan. He appointed Wu Tianda as the commander of the Imperial Army stationed in Xing Province, and also the prefect of Xing Province and the pacifier of the province. He then appointed a series of Sichuan officials. At night, a banquet was held in the palace to entertain the newly appointed Sichuan officials. There was no lack of encouragement from the emperor. Because it was still early, the civil and military officials began to leave the palace one after another. Song Qingshu, along with Huang Rong and a few other attendants, hurried to the palace gate. He was thinking that if the palace gate guard discovered anything unusual, he would have to use the soul transfer spell again. At this moment, a cold voice called out to him, Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu's body froze. He could not help but groan inwardly. Why did he see this lady at this time? Hearing this, he did not stop. Instead, he quickened his pace, trying to blend in with the civil and military officials. Huang Rong secretly glanced behind her. She saw a graceful and indifferent woman in a palace dress looking in their direction. She could not help but say sourly, "Your romantic debt has come knocking on your door." Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. What romantic debt? It's more like a romantic disaster. Stop looking, let's go. Huang Rong, however, pouted. We can't leave. Just as she finished speaking, a beautiful figure stood in front of them. Song, am I a tiger? Why do you keep avoiding me? Looking at the fairy-like figure in front of him, Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. However, he put on a smile and said, If tigers in this world are so beautiful, then all men will become hunters. The girl in front of him was naturally the yellow-robed girl, Zhao Yingluo. Normally, Song Qingshu would be eager to flirt with such a beautiful girl, but Huang Rong was still behind him. Her disguise might be able to fool the guards, but it might not be able to fool the yellow-robed girl. Just as Song Qingshu was worried about exposing something, Huang Rong covered her mouth and ran to the side, retching violently. It turned out that Song Qingshu's words had caused Huang Rong to roll her eyes. She thought that this bastard usually seduced women like this. She didn't know if it was because she was pregnant, but his mushy words made her stomach churn. She couldn't help but run to the side and retch. Looking at Huang Rong's seductive figure, the yellow-robed girl revealed a puzzled expression. Just as Song Qing-shu was worrying, Han Xingzhou walked over with a smile, as if inadvertently blocking the yellow-robed girl's line of sight. "Qing-shu, why are you walking so fast? Didn't we agree to go back and have a drink together?" Song Qing-shu breathed a sigh of relief inwardly and added, "I saw you talking to someone over there just now, so I didn't call you." Han Xingzhou acted as if he had just seen the yellow-robed girl. So the princess is also here. Although her surname was Yang, how could her true identity be hidden from someone like Han Xingzhou? The yellow-robed girl frowned and said with some dissatisfaction, "Official Han, I was talking to Song Qing-shu. As the daughter of Emperor Huizong of Song, the sister of the current emperor, and the holy maiden of Kanshan Academy, her status had always been aloof. Naturally, she wasn't afraid of offending the prime minister, Han Xingzhou." Han Xingzhou laughed. "In that case, I won't disturb your conversation. Qing-shu, I'll go back to my residence first and wait for you." After taking 2 steps, he stopped and glared at Song Qing-shu's attendants. "What are you still doing here? Don't you have any eyesight?" The attendants looked at each other in dismay. Huang Rong reacted quickly. She lowered her head and followed after them. The other attendants suddenly realized what was going on and followed after them. Watching the group leave, Song Qing-shu was a little worried that Huang Rong would be stopped by the guards at the palace gate. After all, Han Xingzhou didn't know the soul transfer technique. But on second thought, with Han Xingzhou's background in the court, who would dare to investigate him? With this thought, he immediately felt relieved. "It seems that you are very familiar with Han Xingzhou." Thinking of Han Xingzhou's ambiguous smile when he left, the yellow-robed girl felt her cheeks become a little hot. "It's all right. It's just a friendship we established in Yangzhou." Song Qing-shu calmly withdrew his gaze so that she wouldn't see any flaws. "Oh." The yellow-robed girl only said it casually to resolve the awkwardness in her heart. She didn't care about their friendship at all. "Why didn't I see you during the competition just now?" Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously replied, "I had an upset stomach, so I went out to relieve myself." "Really?" The yellow-robed girl said with a faint smile, "With your cultivation, you are immune to heat and cold. You can go without food for a few days without a problem. Why would your stomach be upset?" Song Qing-shu replied embarrassedly, "People have 3 urgent needs. No matter how good their martial arts are, they can't go against the natural order." The yellow-robed girl didn't believe his nonsense at all. She coldly snorted, "I'm afraid it's not the 3 urgent needs. You want to find Imperial Concubine Wu." Song Qing-shu was stunned. He knew that she had misunderstood. However, it was better than letting her know that he had taken Huang Rong away, so he tacitly agreed. Seeing that he didn't refute, a trace of anger flashed between the yellow-robed girl's brows. "Although Imperial Concubine Wu is the most beautiful woman in the world, many of your confidants are not inferior to her at all. Why do you want to ruin your own future? After all, she is an imperial concubine. Once the matter between you and her is exposed, how can the entire Great Song tolerate you?" She had always been exceptionally intelligent. From the previous clues and the few words that her master had revealed, it was very easy for her to determine that the relationship between Song Qing-shu and Aku was not ordinary. "Do I have many confidants who are as beautiful as Imperial Concubine Wu? Let me think." Song Qing-shu paused. His eyes suddenly kept glancing at the yellow-robed girl. The yellow-robed girl felt extremely uncomfortable under his gaze. She sneered, "Why are you looking at me?" Song Qing-shu laughed and said, "I finally thought of a confidant who fits the requirements. That is you, young lady." Although she knew that he was deliberately coaxing her, the yellow-robed girl still couldn't help but feel her heart skip a beat. However, she quickly reacted and coldly snorted to cover up the fluctuations in her heart. "Don't change the subject. Paper can't cover fire. Sooner or later, the matter between you and Imperial Concubine will be known. Take care of yourself." After saying this, she turned around and disappeared into the distance without looking back. Watching her leave, Song Qingshu couldn't help but smile bitterly. But now Huang Rong's matter was more urgent. He would slowly explain to her about Ahka later. Worried that Huang Rong would be kidnapped again or that Han Xingzhou would use her as a bargaining chip to threaten him, Song Qingshu could be said to be flying all the way. He almost didn't stop to take a breath to reach the Han mansion. Han Xingzhou had already been waiting for him in the study. At this time, Huang Rong had also changed back into women's clothes and was sitting on the other side of the room. "Rong, are you okay?" Song Qingshu walked quickly to Huang Rong and asked. He originally wanted to call her Rong, but he realized that it was not appropriate to call her so intimately in the presence of Han Xingzhou, so he temporarily changed his words. "I'm fine." Huang Rong smiled sweetly. She obviously understood what Song Qingshu was asking her, so she hinted that Han Xingzhou did not make things difficult for her. At this time, Huang Rong was out of trouble. The depression of the past few days was swept away, and she returned to her usual charming and moving appearance. At this time, her sweet smile could really hook people's souls away. "I will take you back immediately," Song Qingshu said in a low voice. He really didn't feel at ease leaving Huang Rong in the Han mansion. After thinking about it, it was best to take care of her himself. Huang Rong blushed and replied in a low voice, "Jing Gij is coming soon." "What?" Song Qingshu's whole body trembled. The two of them had been separated for so long, and they still hadn't had time to be alone. Thinking of this, he wanted to strangle Han Xingzhou to death. Han Xingzhou seemed to have sensed something and said with a smile, "Chief Huang wanted to see Hero Gua, and I couldn't stop him, so I sent someone to invite him over. Looking at the time, I'm afraid he'll be here soon." As the saying goes, speak of the devil. As soon as he finished speaking, a servant came to report, "Prime Minister, Hero Gua is here. I don't know why official Han is looking for me. Gua Jing strode in and suddenly saw his beautiful wife in the room. For a moment, he couldn't help but be surprised and happy. He excitedly rushed over. "Rong Jing Gij." After being separated from her husband for so long, Huang Rong was also very excited. She couldn't help but stand up to greet him. Just as she was about to throw herself into her husband's arms, her eyes swept over Song Qingshu not far away. She didn't know why, but she forcibly stopped herself and let her husband hold her arm. "Rong, am I dreaming?" Gua Jing said in disbelief. "You're not dreaming." Huang Rong's voice was also a bit choked. Seeing her husband's untidy appearance and bloodshot eyes, her heart ached and she pitied him. "Jing Gij, you've worked hard all this time." Seeing the two of them reveal their true feelings, Song Qingshu didn't feel very good, but he quickly laughed at himself. They were a husband and wife who treated each other with respect. Why was he being jealous here? "Ronger, who caught you? How did you escape?" Gua Jing suddenly asked. This time, it was thanks to Prince Song's help that I was able to escape danger. Huang Rong hesitated and didn't answer the first question. Hearing this, Gua Jing walked in front of Song Qingshu and cupped his hands. "I can't thank you enough. From now on, if Brother Song has any errands for me, I won't frown even if I have to go through fire or water." Gua Jing's body had an awe-inspiring righteousness. Song Qingshu secretly felt ashamed and hurriedly supported him. "Brother Gua is too serious. This is what I should do." Seeing her husband so grateful to Song Qingshu, Huang Rong felt strange. She hurriedly interrupted the two of them. "Also, thank you for your help, Minister Han." Chapter 14:12. Hearing this, Gua Jing looked at his wife in shock. "Rong, you were taken to the Imperial Palace?" Huang Rong hesitated. Originally, she had wanted to go back and quietly tell him, but now that things had come to this, she had no choice but to tell the truth. "Yes, just now it was Song Qingshu and Minister Han who rescued me from the Imperial Palace." "Why did the Emperor take you?" Gua Jing was very confused. He had always been loyal to the Southern Song dynasty. Who knew this would happen? No matter how generous he was, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Song Qingshu explained, "Brother Gua, you don't have to worry too much. According to our speculation, it's probably because you have too much of the mark of Jia Shidao's faction. Now that the Jinghu Theater of Operations is full of his people, The emperor just doesn't want Sichuan to be controlled by him. This was the conclusion that he, Huang Rong, and Han Xingzhou had come to after their analysis. Unfortunately, they did not know that other than this reason, there was an even more important reason for Zhao Go to do this, and that was because Guo Jing was Chai Rong. No, it should be Guo Rong's descendant. Huang Rong looked at her husband worriedly. Brother Jing, Guo Jing let out a long sigh. I see. I thought we did something that the emperor was afraid of. Seeing his open-mindedness, Han Xingzhou asked in surprise, You don't mind at all, Hero Guo? What's there to mind? Guo Jing laughed heartily. Too much power in the court is concentrated in the hands of a powerful official. It's destined to cause chaos in the future. It's not a blessing for the people. If I can prevent it before it happens, my little sacrifice is nothing. Han Xingzhou couldn't help but sigh. I've long heard that Hero Guo is righteous and chivalrous for the country and the people. At first, I didn't think so, but now that I've seen it, Hero Guo's magnanimity is really admirable. Master Han, you're too kind. Guo Jing hurriedly returned the greeting. The two chatted for a while. Han Xingzhou said again, Hero Guo is as broad-minded as the sea, but the emperor, it's inevitable that there are villains around. If gang leader Huang appears next to you and the villains fan the flames, you and your wife will be in danger. At this time, Song Qingshu wanted to hug him and give him a kiss. He was just scolding him for breaking up a couple, but he didn't expect him to give him such a wonderful assist so soon. For the sake of this assist, he would write off the previous matter. Though Han Chuanzhou did not say it clearly, the people present were not stupid. They naturally understood what he meant. Zhao Zigo had always been narrow-minded. If he knew that Huang Rong had escaped from the palace and returned to Guo Jing's side, it was hard to say that he would not speculate. He had killed Yu Fei all those years ago, so what was a mere Guo Jing? Huang Rong's mind was as fast as lightning. She instantly understood the key point and nodded. That's right, big brother Jing. I can't appear by your side now, lest I bring danger to you. Originally, she didn't want to go to Song Qingshu's place, but she was worried that her husband would be implicated, so she could only choose the lesser of two evils. Guo Jing snorted, I'm not afraid of danger. If worst comes to worst, we can go back to Xianyang together. Everything under the heavens belongs to the king. Do you think we'll be fine once we return to Xianyang? Huang Rong looked exasperatedly at her husband. Also, even if you're not afraid of danger, you have to think for me and the child in my stomach. I didn't think it through. Guo Jing smiled bitterly and walked in front of Song Qingshu. Brother Song, I haven't thanked you properly, and now I have to trouble you again. I can rest assured leaving sister-in-law in your care. Hearing his words, Song Qingshu looked in Huang Rong's direction for some reason and found that she was also looking in his direction. Their gazes met, and Huang Rong looked away in a panic. Brother Guo, don't worry. I will take good care of sister-in-law and won't let anyone bully her, Song Qingshu said, patting his chest. Guo Jing didn't understand the meaning behind his words, but Huang Rong instantly understood. She couldn't help but glare at him fiercely. What do you mean you won't let others bully me? Do you think you can bully me openly? Of course, she couldn't say these things out loud and could only sulk. After that, they talked about things to take note of. Time passed unknowingly. Han Xingzhou looked out the window and said, Hero Guo, you've been here for a long time. Why don't you go back first to avoid attracting attention? Especially if you leave with Song Qingshu later, you'll be too conspicuous. Although he was reluctant to part with his wife, Guo Jing knew the importance of this. He nodded and said to Huang Rong, Ronger, take care of yourself. I'll leave first. Huang Rong nodded and her eyes became misty. Jing Ji, you have to be careful. Also, after you leave, you have to pretend that you're still looking for me. Otherwise, the palace will suspect you. Song Qingshu secretly admired Huang Rong's intelligence. He had forgotten about this. He didn't expect her to be so thoughtful in her excitement. After sending Guo Jing off, Han Xingzhou and Song Qingshu talked for a while about the situation in Sichuan. Estimating that it was about time, he said, Hero Guo has been gone for a while. You guys shouldn't be so conspicuous if you go out now. Song Qingshu stood up and said, Thank you for your help today, Jiefu. Han Xingzhou laughed and said, "There's no need to be so polite between us. You should know that you've also helped me a lot." As he said this, he secretly winked at him. Song Qingshu instantly understood that he was talking about him replacing Wu Tianda to go to the Beijing prince's residence. Thinking of Qin Keqing's slightly open mouth, her heaven-like breaths, and her happy and sweet expression, he couldn't help but be moved. But remembering that Huang Rong was still at the side, he quickly restrained his expression. Huang Rong looked at him suspiciously, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Oh, that's right. Later, don't go out directly. I'll have the servants bring the sedan here. You can directly sit in the sedan and return to the prince's residence. This way, no one will know that Chief Huang is also here." The reason why Han Xingzhou was so careful was largely because he was also involved in this matter. He didn't want Huang Rong to be discovered here, lest she invite trouble. This isn't too good," Huang Rong said with an awkward expression. "What's not good about it?" Han Xingzhou was startled, but seeing her bashful expression, he immediately understood. "Oh, so Madam is worried that men and women shouldn't be so intimate. Hirogwa won't say anything here. Haha, don't worry. Besides, our Song Qingshu is a gentleman." Huang Rong secretly spat, thinking that Song Qingshu could be considered a gentleman. Even a sow could climb up a tree. Yes, I was thinking too much. Huang Rong wasn't someone who didn't know what was important. She knew that only by sitting in the same sedan with Song Qingshu would they be able to avoid the eyes of all parties. The reason why she deliberately put on an awkward expression was mainly to show Han Xingzhou. After all, she was a married woman and didn't want him to see any trace of her unusual relationship with Song Qingshu. Very quickly, the sedan was brought over. Han Xingzhou first dismissed the servants and then said to Song Qingshu, "You two, please. Sister-in-law, please." Song Qingshu extended his hand and bowed. Seeing his mischievous expression, Huang Rong couldn't help but feel angry. "Since when did you really think of me as your sister-in-law?" However, she couldn't lose her temper in front of Han Xingzhou. She could only purse her lips and walk into the sedan. Then, Song Qingshu cupped his hands to Han Xingzhou and said goodbye. Han Xingzhou nodded and began to order the servants to come in and carry the sedan. After watching the sedan leave, a person flashed out from the rockery next to him. It was his chief advisor, Su Shurdan. He said, "Prime Minister." Han Xingzhou said, "Shurdan, I plan to recommend Guijing as the deputy commander of the front department. Help me draft the memorial." Su Shurdan was stunned. "Guijing is on Jia Shidao's side. If we use our own power to push him to such a critical position, won't we be doing our best for him? I recommend him because he is on Jia Shidao's side." Han Xingzhou smiled mysteriously. And the more critical the position, the better. Su Shurdan looked confused, but he suddenly understood. He couldn't help but give a thumbs up and said, "That's brilliant." Jia Shidao was displeased that Guijing didn't participate in the competition. It would have been fine if Murong Fu had won, but now that he lost, he will definitely vent his anger on Guijing. "Prime Minister, if you recommend Guijing as the deputy commander of the front department, with Jia Shidao's suspicious character, he will definitely suspect that Guijing is on your side." Han Xingzhou stroked his beard and said with a complacent smile, "I won't have to waste any effort to get a general, so why not?" In the sedan that left the Han mansion, Huang Rong pushed the man next to her and whispered, "Hey, sit over there." Song Qingshu spread out his hands. While enjoying the warm touch of her body, he explained, "The sedan is only so big. How can I sit over there?" Huang Rong bit her lip and said, "Don't brag that you are King Qi, but you have such a broken sedan. Don't you feel ashamed?" As she spoke, she reached out to stop the man next to her from approaching. Song Qingshu said with a smile, "You misunderstood me. I didn't use my own clothes when I went out this time. This sedan belongs to Han Xingzhou." Huang Rong also spat and immediately vented her anger on Han Xingzhou. "He's a prime minister. How can he have such a sedan?" Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. "You've misunderstood him. He purposely prepared a small palanquin so that the spies from all sides would subconsciously think that I'm the only one in the palanquin." Huang Rong had actually guessed it, but being in such close contact with him in the sedan made her somewhat annoyed. Anyway, I don't think the two of you are good people. When you left, you winked at each other. What secret signals were you sending? Song Qing-shu was too embarrassed to talk about Qing-kaching. He could only say perfunctorily, the day before the tournament, Prince Beijing invited Wu Tianda to the mansion for a banquet. I helped him, so Han Xingzhou thanked me. Worried that she would get to the bottom of the matter, Song Qing-shu quickly changed the topic. Right? Who kidnapped you before? Naturally, it was the experts from the Imperial Palace. Huang Rong said as she recalled. I heard their voices were a bit sharp. It is likely that they were eunuchs from the Imperial Palace. Song Qing-shu nodded inwardly. It seemed that Huang Shang and the yellow-robed woman were not involved in this matter. He just didn't know which two eunuchs from the Imperial Palace. Then who kidnapped you the first time? Song Qing-shu suddenly asked again. Previously, he had asked Ren Yingying and knew that Zhang Ro had brought experts from the loyal army to capture her, Ling Huchong and Yuling Shan. No matter how he thought about it, the other people in the loyal army did not have the ability to kidnap Huang Rong. Chapter 14:13. His finger was broken. Song Qing-shu was deep in thought. In fact, Ren Yingying had told him about it before. At that time, he thought that the famous finger-breaking master in Jianghu was the nine-fingered beggar, Hong Qigong. But Hong Qigong couldn't have kidnapped Huang Rong. How was his martial arts? Huang Rong recalled for a moment and shook her head. His kung fu was very complicated. He had moves from various sects and clans, but his power was greater than those of the disciples from those sects. She began to describe his kung fu as she spoke. As Song Qing-shu listened, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. I know who he is. Who? Huang Rong opened her eyes wide. She was also curious. Murong Bo. It turned out that Song Qing-shu had just thought of an old story. When he was in the Jin Kingdom, Murong Bo used joined finger to fight with his sword chi and hurt his finger. Besides, he knew all kinds of martial arts from all kinds of sects, and he could even surpass his master. It was hard to think of anyone else but the Murong family of Gusu. Isn't Murong Bo dead? Huang Rong was startled. North Xiao Feng, South Murong, and most of South Murong's reputation was built by Murong Bo. In Jianghu, he could be considered a grandmaster. When he passed away, he had caused a sensation. He faked his death. Song Qing-shu then told her about the Murong family's ambition to revive the Yin kingdom. I see. Huang Rong was very smart. With enough information, she instantly understood everything. He wanted his son, Murong Fu, to be in charge of the military in Sichuan, so he could take the opportunity to rebel and restore the Yin kingdom. But Brother Jing was the first candidate under Jia Shidao's command. So, Murong Bo caught me and forced Brother Jing to give up the competition. Then, Murong Fu would have a chance. Thinking of the result of the competition, Huang Rong showed a happy expression. It's a pity that he used all his tricks, but in the end, he still worked for someone else. Song Qing-shu snorted. Although his trick didn't work, I can't let it go that he bullied your sword. Do you want revenge? Hearing his words, Huang Rong's eyes flashed with a strange light. After hesitating for a moment, she finally nodded. Yes. At this moment, she seemed to have regained the demonic spirit of the past, no longer the well-behaved wife and loving mother. All right, I'll take you to him now. Song Qing-shu's expression was as dark as still water. This was not the first time he had come into conflict with the Murong clan. This time, he might as well settle everything. Now, Huang Rong was taken aback. What if my identity is revealed in my current appearance? That's true. Song Qing-shu muttered to himself for a while. How about this? We return to the Prince of Qi's mansion first. You change into your casual clothes and disguise yourself. We will go together. All right. Huang Rong nodded. Although she looked calm on the surface, she could not suppress the excitement in her heart. It had been many, many years since she had done anything risky. It had been so long that she had forgotten that she was not a traditional woman who followed the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. Instead, she was a positive and adventurous little demonic girl. Being together with Jing Gij is blissful, but occasionally taking risks isn't bad. Huang Rong became absent-minded for a moment. Rong, your body smells so good. Song Qing-shu moved closer to less than an inch away from her face and gently sniffed. You clearly haven't put on any rouge or makeup recently, so why do you still smell so good? And there seems to be a milky smell. Huang Rong blushed from his scent and felt uncomfortable all over. She pushed him away. Don't get so close. Song Qing-shu giggled and pointed at the wall to the side. I don't have a choice. Huang Rong didn't know what to do with his mischievous expression. She could only say, if you want me to return to the mansion with you, we must agree on 3 rules. 3 rules? Song Qing-shu laughed. What kind of rules? There are so many women in your fu. If you continue to treat me like this, they aren't blind. They will naturally see the relationship between us. Huang Rong bit her lips tightly. If other people see through us, how will I be able to live? Song Qing-shu smiled. Don't worry, I won't be so inconsiderate. When there are people around, I will definitely be respectful to you. I hope you will do as you say. Huang Rong wanted him to be respectful to her regardless of whether there were people around. But she knew that this was impossible, so she didn't waste her breath. I can't be intimate with you later. Then Ronger, shouldn't you compensate me now? Song Qing-shu moved closer with a face full of saliva. Huang Rong almost fainted from anger. Who wants to be intimate with you? Song Qing-shu laughed mischievously and said, this sedan is too crowded. If we sit side by side like this, I'm worried that your stomach will be squeezed and hurt the baby inside. Why don't I carry you? After saying that, he did not wait for her to respond and carried her into his arms without any explanation. You. Song Qing-shu was very agile. When Huang Rong reacted, she was already sitting in his arms. Don't get excited. Be careful of the baby. Song Qing-shu moved his face closer to hers and said gently. Huang Rong was about to resist, but after hearing this sentence, her body gradually softened. Thinking of the 2 times she was in danger, he saved her. When she saw his excitement at that time, her heart also softened. When we arrive at your house, let me go. Okay. Song Qing-shu reached out his hand to hook her chin and slowly kissed her. Huang Rong's eyes showed a trace of confusion and hesitation. She gradually closed her eyes, and her eyelashes trembled slightly. Seeing that their lips were about to touch, she suddenly turned her face away. No, we can't do this. Song Qing-shu sighed. When I saved you from the Jewel Mountain, didn't we kiss? Why do you refuse now? Don't mention that. Huang Rong's face was hot. It was a matter of life and death. I just happened to. In short, it was just an accident. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. It seems that only when you walk on the edge of life and death can you throw away the shackles of the world and reveal your true feelings inadvertently. Huang Rong was silent. After a long time, she said, between the 2 of us, it was originally a mistake. Since you know it was a mistake, why do you keep making mistakes? When it comes to love, there is no right or wrong. Song Qing-shu sighed. Love? Huang Rong raised her head. Her beautiful eyes were as magnificent as gems. Ask yourself honestly. I'm afraid that your love is more interested in my body, right? You always look at things from such a sharp angle. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. I don't deny that your body is very tempting to me, but I believe you should feel my feelings for you. That's nice to hear. Huang Rong spat. Thinking of the anxious expression on his face when he saved her several times, she knew that it was indeed sincere. However, when she thought of him admitting that he was very interested in her body, Huang Rong became angry. Just as she was about to scold him, a strange look suddenly flashed between her brows. She said angrily, You're pushing me. Song Qing-shu didn't hear it clearly at first. He only came to his senses when she repeated it. He said a little awkwardly, It's a normal physiological reaction. Who told you to be so charming? If it were any other man holding you, I'm afraid they would do the same. Huang Rong snorted. So it's my fault? If it was an ordinary girl, she would have been too embarrassed to speak. However, she was a married woman after all, and her daughter was already a teenager. Although she felt a little uncomfortable, she could still communicate with him on this issue. My fault, my fault. Song Qingshu hurriedly pleaded for mercy. Soon, the sedan chair fell into silence. The narrow space seemed to be filled with an ambiguous atmosphere. Because the sedan chair was carried by people, it was inevitable that it would shake to a certain extent during the movement. Now that the two of them were tightly hugging each other, as the sedan chair shook, their bodies inevitably rubbed against each other. In addition, Song Qingshu was in a physiological state at this time. Huang Rong's face became redder and redder. There seemed to be a layer of water flowing in her eyes. She finally couldn't help but speak, but her voice became a little unnatural. You put me down. Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows. Why do you want to come down? Are you uncomfortable holding me like this? Huang Rong opened her mouth and said in a small voice, You promised me 3 rules. But we haven't reached the mansion yet. Song Qingshu said seriously. Aren't you being shameless? Huang Rong said angrily. So what if I am? Song Qingshu decided to just throw in the towel. Huang Rong was about to say something when the sedan chair shook again. This caused her to lose her balance, and she sat heavily in Song Qingshu's arms. She couldn't help but cry out. You! Huang Rong's body stiffened. This situation made her a little speechless. Are you 3 months pregnant? Song Qingshu suddenly asked. What does it have to do with you? Huang Rong said through gritted teeth. Of course it has to do with me. According to scientific research, you can't have sex in the first and last 2 months of pregnancy, Song Qingshu explained. You scoundrel. Hearing his words, Huang Rong was both embarrassed and angry. Seeing Rong-er's reaction, it should have been 3 months, Song Qingshu said with a ghost of a smile. Huang Rong turned her face away from his question and ignored him. At the same time, she regretted that the group of servant girls had given her a few sets of clothes at Han Zhozhou's mansion. She shouldn't have chosen this one. Although it was beautiful, the material was too thin. Han Zhozhou was the chief minister of the court, so the clothes in his mansion were naturally made of the best silk. They were extremely light, and the layers of the dress stuck together. Not only did it not expose her, but it was also as thin as a cicada's wings. Normally, Huang Rong would be very satisfied with this set of clothes, but now that she was sitting in Song Qingshu's arms, she wished that the material was as coarse and thick as possible. That way, it would at least have a defensive effect. It was not like now, where she could clearly feel the heat of the other's body. Chapter 14:14. Because they are not you, Song Qingshu said with a smile. Huang Rong was stunned. His ordinary words had hit a soft spot in her heart. She couldn't help but sigh secretly. This bastard was obviously greedy for beauty, but he could make women feel his true feelings. No wonder he had so many outstanding female confidants around him. While she was lost in thought, Song Qingshu had already taken another step forward. Huang Rong's heart swayed, and she subconsciously wanted to scold him. But then she suddenly thought that it didn't seem to be a big deal. After all, they were separated by clothes. Not to mention, she was also enjoying this feeling. As soon as this thought came up, Huang Rong instantly woke up. No, I can't do anything that will let Jing Gige down again. She suddenly stood up and was about to scold him with righteous words. But just as she opened her mouth, the sedan suddenly stopped, and she lost her balance and fell forward. It's over. Huang Rong's face turned pale. When she thought that falling on the ground could very likely lead to a miscarriage, her mother's instinct made her subconsciously fall back. Fortunately, she had a foundation in martial arts, so she was able to overcome the inertia in that instant. But the price was also quite heavy. Because she used up almost all of her strength to fall back, she lost her balance and sat once again in Song Qingshu's arms. At that moment, both of them froze. Song Qingshu revealed a trace of a strange expression. This time you sat on my own initiative. You can't blame me. Huang Rong's entire face instantly turned red. She wanted to open her mouth to scold him, but at this time, she couldn't say a word. Did I hurt you? Song Qingshu put his hand on her shoulder and asked with a look of concern. Hurt your big head. Huang Rong was really going crazy at this moment. She couldn't wait to raise her hand and slap him. But at this time, she didn't dare to move at all, for fear that it would make her even more embarrassed. What a coincidence! Song Qing-shu's eyes glanced at the woman's perky buttocks. He was reminded of a very popular thread on the internet in his previous life that discussed the retarded scenes that often appeared in online novels. One of the threads mentioned that in one of the novels, the company's beautiful secretary was wearing a tight skirt and was about to go to the office to scan some documents. When the male protagonist saw her sexy appearance, his body reacted instinctively. In the end, when she walked past the male protagonist, she accidentally slipped. The male protagonist instinctively reached out to help her up, and the two of them fell together. The beautiful secretary sat on the male protagonist's body, and at that moment, the male protagonist actually entered the secretary's body. At that time, Song Qing-shu also ridiculed the author. How did the author think of such a retarded scene? The male character's jeans, the secretary's skirt, and the two of them's underwear. No matter which angle they fell from, there was no way they could have entered each other. However, he never thought that he would actually experience such a similar coincidence when he mocked the author for being retarded. Of course, in this aspect, Song Qing-shu knew that he couldn't compare to the amazing male character. After all, there were still a few layers of clothes between them. Even if he thought with his toes, he would know that there could not really be anything between them. However, this was enough to make Huang Rong feel ashamed and resentful. Huang Rong bit her lips tightly to prevent herself from making any embarrassing sounds when she was hit. At this time, she had gradually calmed down. She took a deep breath and was about to question him, but who knew that just as she opened her mouth, Song Qing-shu's finger had already pressed on her lips. Don't speak. Huang Rong was shocked at first, but she immediately reacted. This sedan chair would not suddenly stop for no reason. Something must have happened outside. I've long heard that Prince Song's martial arts are unparalleled and that your name has shaken Jianghu. I've heard of your reputation and come here to see your unparalleled swordsmanship. Suddenly, a voice as cold as ice came from outside. Huang Rong's expression changed. From the sound of the voice, the person was standing 30 feet away from the sedan chair. However, even from such a distance, she could faintly feel the powerful sword qi that sent chills down her spine. It was as if the person standing there was not a person, but an incomparably sharp sword. She couldn't help but look at Song Qing-shu worriedly. However, she couldn't see any nervousness or abnormality in his eyes, only calmness like the surface of a lake. Huang Rong couldn't help but secretly admire him. Although this person was a little greedy and lecherous at times, when he was serious, he really had the demeanor of a grandmaster, giving people an inexplicable sense of security. However, a trace of shame and anger flashed in her eyes. She thought to herself, "This bastard, let me get up first." Her current situation gave her a sense of crisis, as if an enemy had surrounded the city, and the door could be broken into at any time. At this time, Huang Rong didn't dare to make any strange movements. She knew that the person outside was a master among masters. If he discovered her existence, then she really didn't want to live anymore. She could only continue to endure this embarrassing torment. What? Could it be that Prince Song doesn't dare to compete with me? The cold voice outside sounded again. Song Qing-shu chuckled and replied indifferently, "If I accepted anyone who came to challenge me, then wouldn't I be busy to death?" Hearing his words, the servants outside the sedan chair hurriedly tried to negotiate, wanting to drive away the person blocking the way. Unfortunately, as soon as they opened their mouths, there was no sound. Song Qing-shu frowned, but still didn't do anything. This was because the other person only sealed the acupoints of the servants and didn't kill them. Since that's the case, then I'll let you see if I have the qualifications to challenge you. The person was obviously a little impatient. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword flashing with a cold light shot into the sedan chair. Huang Rong couldn't help but turn pale. Although the tip of the sword hadn't touched her body, the sword aura it carried was already faintly piercing her skin. She instinctively wanted to use the dog-beating stick technique to try and knock the sword down. Unfortunately, as soon as she raised her hand, she touched empty air. Only then did she realize that the dog-beating stick wasn't by her side. And even if she had the dog-beating stick in her hand, she didn't have full confidence that she could knock off this irresistible sword. At this time, she suddenly remembered that there was still Song Qing-shu. She didn't know why, but staying with him gave her a special sense of security. This sense of security was even greater than Guo Jing's. Is it because his martial arts is higher than Brother Jing's? Huang Rong thought absent-mindedly. Her mind was full of thoughts, but seeing that the sword was about to pierce her, she instinctively buried her face in Song Qingshu's chest. After a long time, there was no movement. Huang Rong raised her head in shock and found that the sword had stopped about a foot in front of her, unable to advance any further. Huang Rong had always known that Song Qingshu's martial arts were very high, but she noticed that he didn't even move his hands to stop the sword that was coming at her. She was still shocked. After the shock, she suddenly realized that she was leaning against his chest like a little bird. As if she had been scalded, she instantly sat up straight. Song Qingshu didn't tease her anymore. Instead, with a serious face, he reached out his hand, and the sword shot back at a speed faster than when it came. Huang Rong only saw a blur in front of her, and the sword disappeared. She couldn't help but think, if it were me, I would have been hit by the sword before I could even react. The person outside was probably dead. After a while, there was no sound from outside, which confirmed Huang Rong's guess. However, Song Qingshu didn't look happy at all. Instead, he gently placed her on the seat and whispered to her, "Wait for me here. Don't come out." With that, he got off the sedan chair. Before this, Huang Rong had been praying for Song Qingshu to put her down. It would be best if he left the sedan chair. But now that her wish had been fulfilled, she found that she wasn't happy at all. Could it be that I'm afraid that he's in danger? When she got off the sedan chair, Huang Rong saw a swordsman standing a few feet away through the gap in the curtain. It was obvious that he wasn't killed by Song Qingshu's counterattack as she had expected. After Song Qingshu got off the sedan chair, he looked at the man not far away and saw that he was about 40 or 50 years old. There were a few strands of silver hair on his temples, and he had an elegant and calm demeanor. Other than his slightly cold expression, he looked more like a wise man who did not seek fame and fame. He also looked like a famous person who had retired from the world of mortals. However, in Song Qingshu's eyes, he was like a peerless divine sword standing there, exuding a powerful sword aura that made people shiver, revealing an uneasy sharpness. The realm of becoming one with the sword. Song Qingshu muttered to himself. He had seen many sword experts over the years, but the man in front of him gave him the feeling that he was like the sword saint of Mount Hua, Feng Qingyang. But he was even sharper than Feng Qingyang. When Song Qingshu was looking at the man was also looking at him. Seeing that he was casually standing there, as if he had become one with heaven and earth, he couldn't help but be surprised. No wonder Prince Song became famous in the world in just a few years. Seeing you today, you really live up to your reputation. After a pause, he looked at the sedan chair behind him thoughtfully and continued. Your reputation of being a playboy is just as the rumors say. Huang Rong was peeking through the gap in the curtain. Hearing this, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed and immediately shrank back. She was worried about her gains and losses. Did he recognize me? Song Qingshu frowned slightly. With this man's cultivation, it was not surprising that he had sensed Huang Rong's existence. What surprised him was that he had no information about this man at all. Who are you? With your cultivation, you can't be some nameless person. The man shook his head. I'm not from the Jianghu. You might not have heard of me, even if I told you. How would you know if I've heard of you if you don't tell me? Song Qingshu smiled. You claim that you're not from the Jianghu. Looking at your thick, almost tangible killing intent, I'm afraid that only someone from the army could cultivate this. A strange look appeared in the man's eyes. That's right. I'm from the army. My name is Shui. The Shui who's known as the Bloody Robe Man. Song Qingshu's jaw almost dropped to the ground. How did someone from the ancient dragon sect get involved? The surprise in Shui Yi's eyes deepened. That's right. 20 years ago, I did have this nickname. However, only my comrades in the army knew about it. How did you know? When the Jin Kingdom invaded the south, the Southern Song dynasty and the Jin kingdom engaged in several wars. The small unit that Shui was in was surrounded by 3,000 Jin troops. Everyone thought that they were going to die, but in the end, Shui single-handedly led his comrades to carve out a bloody path. The usually arrogant Jin army was killed until they were terrified. That battle could be said to be a battlefield littered with corpses. When reinforcements finally arrived, they saw Shui standing proudly in the middle of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. His clothes were soaked in blood, and thus he was known as the bloody-robed man. Chapter 14:15. Shui had a high reputation in the army. However, he was low-key by nature and was a member of the Shui clan. Later on, he used his connections to transfer him out of the frontline troops. Just like that, 20 years had passed. His reputation was gradually forgotten, and he was not known by the people of the pugilistic world. It was fortunate that he had met Song Qingshu. If it was someone else, they probably would not know how powerful he was. However, Song Qingshu was different. After all, he had read Gulong's novel and knew that Shui was definitely comparable to Shimin Shui. In the novel, Chu Liuxiang, who had the best lightness skill in the world, could not dodge his sword in time. Furthermore, Shui had not used his full strength. In fact, Song Qingshu did not know if the Shui was the same person as the one in Gulong's novel. However, from the move he had just made, this person's cultivation was definitely not below Feng Qingyang of Hua Mountain. Back then, Dongfang Mushue's martial arts were very high, but after his battle with Feng Qingyang, he was unable to use martial arts for 10 years. With Song Qingshu's current cultivation and judgment, he could make an objective judgment. In terms of the exquisiteness of sword techniques, Feng Qingyang might be superior to Shui. However, in terms of the purity of sword intent, Shui was superior to Feng Qingyang. After all, Feng Qingyang practiced Dugu Qiubai's sword technique, while Shui sword technique was created by himself. Shui slowly raised the sword in his hand. His eyes were filled with nostalgia and sorrow. I have not used my sword for a long time. However, after meeting you today, I have no choice but to make an exception. Song Qingshu smiled. In that case, I should feel honored. Shui said calmly. It is also my honor to meet an expert like you. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly unsheathed his sword. Even from a distance of several zhang, one could feel the chill of the sword. Song Qingshu furrowed his brows slightly. He wasn't afraid of his opponent, but he felt that fighting with such a top-notch expert for no reason was not worth the effort. Moreover, Huang Rong was still in the palanquin. If she was hurt by the shockwaves of the duel and some accident happened, it would be too late for regrets. However, he also knew that for some people who were obsessed with martial arts, finding an evenly matched opponent was a very exciting thing. It was almost impossible to make the other party give up the idea of fighting. Just as he was about to make his move, a pleasant female voice came from the other side of the street. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Song Qingshu looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young girl riding a horse over. Her face was like a silver basin. Her eyes were like watery apricots. Her lips were red without lipstick, and her eyebrows were green without any makeup. Normally, riding a horse was not the same as being refined, but Song Qingshu could feel a kind of dignified and graceful temperament from this young girl. So it's her. Song Qingshu recognized this beautiful young lady. Previously, when he was conferred the title of Prince of Qi, she had accompanied his father to his residence to congratulate him. The reason why he was able to recognize her at a glance was because she was called Shui Baochai. Shui could not help but frown when he saw her. What are you doing here? Shui Baochai pulled on the reins and stopped. Perhaps because she had rushed over, she was panting as she spoke. Big brother, you can't challenge him. Hearing the way she addressed him, Song Qingshu could not help but be startled. His gaze swept back and forth between her and Shui a few times. He thought to himself that there was a difference of several decades between the two of them, but her father was still vigorous despite his age. However, he quickly recalled Shui Ji's appearance. No matter what, He could not be Shui Yerin's father. Song Qingshu quickly realized that their relationship was probably similar to that of Jia Zhen and Jia Baoyu. They were clearly older, but they were cousins of the same generation. When Shui Yiren heard his sister's words, he coldly snorted. Why can't I challenge him? Shui Baochai dismounted. She first glanced at Song Qingshu, giving him an apologetic look. Then, she ran to her brother's side and whispered, he has already been conferred the title of Prince of Qi. Right now, his status is noble, and the forces under his command cannot be underestimated. There is no need for our Shui clan to provoke such a powerful enemy. Even though her voice was very soft, Song Qingshu could still hear her clearly with his cultivation. He could not help but sigh inwardly. Shui Baochai's persona was still like this, graceful and understanding of the big picture. Everything had been carefully considered. Is this your idea or your father's? Shui Yiren asked with a frown. It is my idea. However, if my father was here, he would definitely stop you, Shui Baochai quickly replied. Song Qingshu breathed a sigh of relief inwardly. It was best to avoid this kind of inexplicable fight if possible. Shui Yiren sank into silence. Just when everyone thought that he had given up, he suddenly said, all these years, I have not been able to find anyone who can draw their sword. Now, I have finally found one. Even if your father is here, he will not be able to stop me today. Shui Baochai immediately grew anxious. She knew that if the two of them fought, no matter who won, they would definitely offend a powerful enemy like Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu was highly skilled in martial arts and had a powerful army under his command. His strength far surpassed that of an ordinary prince. It would be unwise to make an enemy out of him. However, she also knew that her brother loved the sword as much as his own life. Now that he had finally found an opponent, it would be very difficult for him to stop. Shui Yiren pointed his sword at Song Qingshu from a distance. His entire body's aura was locked onto Song Qingshu, and he was looking for an opportunity to strike. Song Qingshu did not dare to be negligent. After all, the person in front of him was no ordinary expert. If he was not careful, it was possible that he would fail miserably. A cool breeze blew past, and the leaves of a nearby tree fell between the two of them. However, they were instantly sliced into pieces by the seemingly solid sword aura. Shui Yiren's eyes narrowed. He turned the sword in his hand and was about to strike. At this moment, a beautiful figure in yellow landed between the two of them. When Shui Yiren saw the other party's appearance, he frowned and moved the sword in his hand to the side in the nick of time. Song Qingshu also recognized the identity of the woman. His brows gradually relaxed, and the aura that he had gathered also disappeared without a trace. General Shui is still as elegant as ever. The woman bowed slightly to Shui Yiren. Who else could it be but the yellow-robed woman? Greetings, princess. Shui Yiren cupped his hands in greeting. After many years, princess's martial arts have improved a lot. The yellow-robed woman smiled slightly. In front of General Shui, how could I dare to say that I have improved? Shui Yiren did not comment. He looked at her thoughtfully. What brings Princess here this time? The yellow-robed woman smiled slightly. Not long ago, the Emperor summoned General to the capital. Today, he heard that General has arrived at Lin, and specially sent me to receive you. Shui Yiren's eyes narrowed. His gaze swept between the yellow-robed woman and Song Qingshu. The yellow-robed woman continued to look at him with her usual smile. Shui Baochai had always been smooth and slick. Seeing this, she hurriedly walked over and tugged at her brother's arm. Big brother, since the Emperor has invited us, we should not be late. Shui Yiren's brows were tightly furrowed. After a long time, he sheathed his sword and said in a clear voice, It seems that I have no fate to experience young master skills today. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. There will be plenty of time. Very good. Shui Yiren looked at him deeply before turning to leave. His aura gradually retracted, like a divine weapon slowly being sheathed. Shui Baochai hurriedly held the hem of her skirt and bowed to Song Qingshu. I have been impolite today. I will apologize to the Prince of Qi another day. Finishing, she led her horse and hurriedly chased after Shui Yiren. Seeing the two gradually disappear into the street, Song Qingshu could not help but sigh. You were really careless. Just now, you did not have any defense at all. The yellow-robed woman faintly sighed. Both of you are experts among experts. How can I deal with both of you at the same time? At that critical moment, it was already good enough that I could only defend one side. Song Qingshu's expression changed. It seems that you trust me. The yellow-robed woman's face reddened. However, she quickly concealed it. Of course, I have not seen Shui Yiren for many years and do not have much of a relationship. More than anything else, I am willing to believe that you will not attack me. It was because of this belief that she had completely abandoned the defense of her back and focused all her attention on Shui Yiren. She was afraid that he, who was obsessed with martial arts, would recklessly attack her. Worried that he would continue to say something that would make it difficult for her to answer, the yellow-robed woman hurriedly smiled and changed the topic. Shouldn't you thank me? Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. I really have to thank you. Otherwise, it would be really depressing to fight with such an expert for no reason. The yellow-robed woman's lips curled up slightly. Then how do you plan to thank me? How about I treat you to a drink? Song Qingshu said with a smile. Drink? The yellow-robed woman put her hands behind her back and kicked a stone by her feet. That sounds pretty good. How about today? Huang Rong, who was in the palanquin, heard the conversation between the two of them. Her heart instantly jumped to her throat. She thought to herself, this bastard could have picked up a girl at any other time. Why did he have to pick up a girl now? If this girl was really interested, wouldn't her existence be exposed very quickly? Song Qingshu was also shocked. However, he had already mastered the ability to remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. He smiled and replied, sure. However, from what you said earlier, it seems that you are bringing Shui Yiren back to see the emperor today? Yes. The yellow-robed woman sighed. It seems that I can only find you for a drink next time. Song Qingshu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, from your conversation just now, why is the emperor in such a hurry to summon experts into the palace? The yellow-robed woman frowned and hesitated for a long while before she said, I shouldn't have said it, but with your current status, you will know sooner or later. The yellow-robed woman paused and continued to say, a few days ago, the daughter of Imperial Censor Shun Yin was kidnapped on her way from her hometown, Shanin Shingarden to Lin. The emperor was furious and hurriedly summoned the experts of various families to deal with the matter. Song Qingshu couldn't help but remember that when he and Lu Yu went to Shingarden in Shanin, he also met his ex-wife Tang Wan there. But he still couldn't help but ask curiously, although the position of Imperial Censor is not low, it shouldn't alarm the emperor, right? The yellow-robed woman faintly sighed. Under normal circumstances, it indeed wouldn't alarm the emperor, but this time the matter is special because of the identity of the daughter of the Shun family. She is not only Shun Yan's precious daughter, but also the future crown princess candidate. Yesterday, my head was dizzy and I really couldn't keep writing, so I went to bed early. I'm extremely sorry for the lack of updates. Chapter 14-16. Crown Princess. Song Qingshu was startled and vaguely remembered that he had heard Han Xingzhou mention that the crown prince had reached the marriageable age and the imperial palace was busy selecting young ladies as candidates. No matter if it was officials, scholars, or wealthy merchants, all of them were very active. Any family that had a similar age, talent, and beauty would all report it, hoping that the crown princess would end up in their family. After all, she was the crown princess now, and in the future, she would be the empress. The entire family would be stained with glory, and not only could they enjoy a lifetime of wealth, they could also bring glory to their ancestors and raise the level of the family. But a while ago, Song Qingshu was busy saving Ren Yingying, Huang Rong, and the others, and did not pay attention to the crown princess election. Song Qingshu's heart moved, and he suddenly thought of something. He asked with a strange expression, what is the name of that young lady Chun? When he was in Shanin, he seemed to have heard of the young lady Chun. She was a famous beauty in the city, but he did not know if it was the same person. The yellow-robed female rolled her eyes at him. Are you always so interested in beautiful women? How can the name of the crown princess be known by a man? Even though she said this, but considering that Song Qingshu had great abilities and might be able to help, she finally told him. Shin Bijuan? Silently reciting the name that the yellow-robed female told him, Song Qingshu's entire person could be said to be in a mess. Just now, there was the world's #1 swordsman Shui Yi from Chu Luxiang, and now there was the world's #1 beauty from Xiao 11 Lang. Could it be that his transmigration caused the entire world to be in chaos? You know her? Seeing his reaction, the yellow-robed female asked curiously. I don't know her. I've only heard of her name. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Why was she kidnapped? I feel that as long as it is a beauty, there is nothing you don't know. The yellow-robed female could not help but ridicule. The crown princess selection is very intense. Although young Lady Chun is talented and beautiful, the other competitors are not bad either. So the Shin family thought a move and let young Lady Chun take the family treasure blade to the crown prince. It was said to be a gift, but in reality, it was to let the emperor, empress, and crown prince personally see young Lady Chen's beauty and talent and win the initiative in the crown princess election. Who knew that it would be robbed on the way? And now young Lady Shun and that treasure blade have disappeared without a trace. Song Qingshu forced a smile and said, That saber can't be called Dear Cleaver, right? Dear Cleaver? The yellow-robed woman shook her head. I'm not sure about that. I only know that the Chun family has a mandarin duck saber. It is said that it contains the secret of invincibility in the world. Song Qingshu was taken aback. Why didn't he play his cards according to common sense? Why was it mixed with the plot of the mandarin duck dagger? However, after thinking about it, he felt relieved. It was just changing the name of the saber. The essence was still the same. As for the secret of being invincible in the world, Song Qingshu, who knew the inside story, almost burst out laughing. It seems that you do not agree with the theory that the Yuanyang saber contains the secret of invincibility in the world. The yellow-clothed woman keenly noticed the change in his expression. Invincibility depends on the person. Placing your hopes on a mere saber is too ridiculous, Song Qingshu said with a smile. That's right, the yellow-clothed woman agreed. Song Qingshu secretly sighed. He had seen the mandarin duck dagger and knew that the secret of invincibility that made people of Wulin fight over it was the 4 words engraved on the mandarin duck dagger. The benevolent are invincible. Back then, when Song Qingshu saw this ending, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This setting was too much of a scam. What's more, he never believed in the politically correct nonsense that the benevolent are invincible. Was Genghis Khan benevolent? Wasn't he still invincible in the world? However, although we don't believe it, the emperor still attached great importance to it. He specially recruited the masters of the big families to investigate this matter. In name, it was to save young Lady Shun, but in my opinion, it was more to find the mandarin duck dagger. The yellow-robed female faintly sighed. She was born from the imperial family, so how could she not understand the rules? Young Lady Shun was kidnapped by thieves, and even if she was rescued, the imperial family would not allow such a tainted female to be the crown prince's imperial concubine. Even if she was a beauty that could cause the downfall of a country, even if she was as clean as ice and as clean as jade. As a woman, the yellow-clothed woman sympathized with young Lady Shin's encounter and could not help but say, If it is possible, I hope you can save her. Song Qingshu spread his hands. I am not an immortal. I don't know who kidnapped her. What's more, I haven't even seen young Lady Shin's face. How can I save her? Although he cherished flowers, it was not to the point where he would save anyone. There were so many female confidants around him that he was already too busy. How could he have the mood to provoke new women? What's more, even if he did not have these female confidants, he would not give up what he was doing to save a woman he had never met. That is true. The yellow-clothed woman nodded. She looked at the silhouette of the imperial palace in the distance and sighed faintly. These are troubled times. Not only was young Lady Shin kidnapped, but I heard that something important was lost in the imperial palace not long ago. Something was lost? Both Song Qing-shu and Huang Rong, who was in the sedan, felt their hearts jump. What was lost? The yellow-clothed woman shook her head. I am not sure. In short, you have to be careful in this period of time. No, with your martial arts, I don't think anyone can hurt you. So tell the people in your fu to be careful. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. Thank you for the reminder. At the same time, he secretly sighed in relief. Zhao Fago must have known that kidnapping Huang Rong was not something that could be done openly, and did not let the yellow-clothed woman participate. From her tone, she did not even know that the thing that had been lost in the imperial palace was not something important, but a person. The yellow-clothed woman casually undid the acupuncture points of the guards who had been knocked unconscious by Shui Yi's men. She walked 2 steps forward and said, Since you became the Queen of Qi, I have not visited your fu. Today is a good time to visit your fu. Huang Rong, who was in the sedan, paled. She thought that if the yellow-clothed woman came with her, wouldn't she be exposed very quickly? She touched her face. It was burning hot. Huang Rong did not need to look in a mirror to know how red her face was. In addition, the sedan was so small, the yellow-clothed woman could easily guess what had happened in the sedan. Once she thought of the rumors that would spread in the Jianghu in the future, and Jing Ji's sad and disappointed eyes, Huang Rong's heart jumped to her throat. Song Qing-shu was also secretly shocked. He was not afraid of being discovered, but he was worried that Huang Rong would not be able to accept it. So he smiled and made a gesture of invitation. Sure, do you want to sit in the sedan with us? Nothing good comes out of a dog's mouth. The yellow-clothed woman spat and unconsciously stopped in her tracks. Forget it. I'd better not go to your fu and ask for trouble. I don't want to be treated as an imaginary enemy by your female friends. Song Qing-shu laughed and said, Aren't you my confidant? The yellow-clothed woman snorted. Say that to the person in the sedan yourself. She then ignored him and walked away without looking back. Song Qing-shu laughed bitterly. The yellow-clothed woman was a top-notch expert. It would be strange if Huang Rong did not notice when her heart suddenly beat so fast. Continue back to the fu. Song Qing-shu ordered the sedan bearers and returned to the sedan. It's all because of you that I can't face anyone. Seeing him enter, Huang Rong could not help but pinch him hard. Song Qing-shu sucked in a breath of cold air. Ronger, don't worry. She only knows that there is someone in the sedan and does not know your identity. Perhaps she only thinks that you are my lover. Lover my ass. Huang Rong glared at him fiercely, but her nervousness gradually dissipated. That's right. That yellow-clothed woman even told you those secrets. It seems that she has a good impression of you. Song Qing-shu said proudly, Of course. Who asked my charm to be so great? No woman who has seen me has not been subdued by my charm. Huang Rong was so angry that she laughed. How shameless! After being shocked by Shui Yi's bone-chilling sword chi, the sedan no longer had its previous charm. Seeing Huang Rong's frosty expression, Song Qing-shu hesitated for a moment. In the end, he did not do anything to her. The two of them chatted along the way and very quickly returned to the Prince of Qi's fu. Because of Song Qing-shu's instructions, the sedan did not stop in front of the fu. Instead, it was carried directly into the inner residence. Rin Yingying and Chun Yuanyuan heard the commotion and came out to welcome them. When they saw Song Qing-shu, they did not even have time to rejoice before their smiles froze on their faces. This was because after Shui Yi alighted from the sedan, he turned around and opened the door of the sedan. From inside, he walked out holding the hand of an exceptionally beautiful woman. Chun Yuanyuan was shocked. She had always been proud of her beauty, but who would have thought that the women by Song Qing-shu's side were all more beautiful than the last? None of them were inferior to her, causing her to begin to doubt her own life. Rin Yingying was even more shocked than her, because she had already recognized this graceful and charming woman. She was the #1 lady of the martial world, Huang Rong. Her gaze fell on the hand that Song Qing-shu was holding, and Rin Yingying's expression instantly became somewhat disappointed. She was different from other women. Although she was not as generous as Xiao Zhao and Shuang, she was still much more generous and graceful than other women. However, this did not mean that she could not be jealous. Not long ago, she had just pledged her love to Song Qing-shu. A young woman's heart was sensitive and fragile. First, it was Chun Yuan and Luo Bing, and now there was Huang Rong. She even had an impulse to return to Blackwood Cliff. Compared to Chun Yuan and Ren Yingying, Huang Rong's heart was currently in turmoil. She had originally planned to quietly find a secluded room to stay for a while after returning to the mansion with Song Qing-shu, who knew that she would run into the mistress of the mansion as soon as she got off the sedan. She immediately recognized Miss Run of Blackwood Cliff. In addition, she had heard about the marriage between Sun Moon Sect and Golden Serpent Camp some time ago, as well as the disturbance at the banquet. She was not at all surprised to see Ren Yingying here. However, as for the other one, even as a woman, Huang Rong was amazed by her beauty. She did not need to raise her hand or move. She simply stood there and displayed the charm of a woman to the fullest. Suddenly, Huang Rong noticed Ren Yingying's gaze. As if she had been scalded, she instantly withdrew her hand, wishing that she could strangle the bastard in front of her. The appearance of characters like Shui Yiren and Shin Bijuan in Gulong's book was only a coincidence. It just so happened that the plot of the book needed such people in these families. She was too lazy to think of other names, so she used these familiar names. She could also spoil the plot in advance. In the upcoming plot of Liao, because there was a Shao 13th Wang in Liao's history, he had a place in history and was also very important in the plot of the book. This name would inevitably cause people to associate it with Shao 11th Wang, so she simply changed it to Shao 11th Wang. It just so happened that she could have some interaction with people like Shen Bijuan. Chapter 14:17. Song Qing-shu, on the other hand, was calm and unperturbed. He said, "Gang leader Huang was captured by the experts in the Imperial Palace. We just rescued her from the Imperial Palace, so it's not convenient for her to appear by Hero Guo's side now, so she's temporarily staying with us." I see. Ren Yingying and Chun Yuan were relieved. They knew about Huang Rong's disappearance. They were not stupid and quickly realized that Huang Rong couldn't show up in public. After the initial shock, they didn't think too much about it. After all, Huang Rong had a good reputation in the Jianghu. No matter how good Song Qing-shu was at seducing her, she wouldn't do it with him. Yingying, take gang leader Huang to change into some casual clothes. We're going out later. Song Qing-shu gestured for Ren Yingying to take Huang Rong to the room to change. Where are you going? Ren Yingying asked curiously. From gang leader Huang's description, I know who kidnapped her. Based on my relationship with the couple, I have to help her get back at them. Song Qing-shu explained. Will it be dangerous? I'll go with you. Ren Yingying said worriedly. Song Qing-shu smiled. Don't worry. With my martial arts, there won't be any danger. On the other hand, you're the one who's exhausted. You need to take care of yourself. It's boring staying at home every day. Since you're so good at martial arts, I won't be a burden to you. Ren Yingying pouted slightly. When a girl's heart belonged to someone, she was always eager to be by her lover's side at all times. Ever since they came back from the small thatched cottage, the two of them had been apart more than together, which made her feel a little disappointed. Well, okay. Song Qing-shu noticed the bitterness in her eyes. He thought it was inappropriate for him to take someone else's wife out without his own woman. Ren Yingying's worry turned to joy. Okay, I'll take Mrs. Guo to change first. Song Qing-shu hurriedly reminded. Since you're going, you should change as well. Okay. Ren Yingying smiled sweetly and held Huang Rong's hand. Mrs. Guo, this way, please. Huang Rong smiled, but she felt very strange in her heart. Why did she feel like a concubine coming to meet the wife? Pooh, pooh, pooh. How could I have such a thought? Huang Rong was secretly shocked. She hurriedly dispelled the distracting thoughts in her mind and followed Ren Yingying to the back hall. Looking at the disappearing figures of the two women, Chun Yuan said with some self-pity, Yingying is smart and good at martial arts. I feel like I'm useless other than this body. There's nothing I can do to help you. Song Qing-shu stepped forward and held her hand. Everyone has their own field of expertise. Why do you have to attack your own weakness with other strengths? Besides, I still need you to help me deal with that matter. Chun Yuan spat. You're too embarrassed to talk about the brothel. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. I'm just worried that I'll stimulate your imagination. Don't worry. After so many years of ups and downs, I'm not that fragile. Chun Yuan snorted softly. During this period, I have some general ideas. As for the rest, I need to meet with your subordinate, Miss He, to discuss it. Song Qingshu nodded. I sent a message to He Tai's Ho some time ago. She will arrive in Lin soon. I'll arrange for you to meet at that time. I hope you keep your promise and don't embarrass those poor women. Chun Yuan sighed faintly. Don't worry. I don't want to hurt your heart for a mere brothel that spies for information. Song Qingshu gently patted the back of her hand. Chun Yuan blushed and subconsciously withdrew her hand. Don't do this. They'll see it later. Song Qingshu smiled and pulled her into his arms. Don't worry. They won't change so fast. Huang Rong followed Ren Yingying to the room. Along the way, she recalled how intimate Ren Yingying was with Song Qingshu just now. She felt a little strange. Finally, she couldn't help but ask, Miss Ren, I have a presumptuous question. I don't know if I should ask. Ren Yingying smiled slightly and replied softly, Mrs. Guo, please ask. Huang Rong then said, Last time I saw you at the banquet. She paused and continued with some embarrassment. At that time, it seemed that you wanted to kill Song Qingshu. Why do you two feel a little like glue now? Ren Yingying blushed. At that time, she tried to assassinate Song Qingshu in front of everyone. The point was that she followed him afterward, which was really embarrassing in retrospect. At that time, I had some misunderstanding with him. Now the misunderstanding has been solved. Ren Yingying explained ambiguously. For some reason, she didn't want to say in front of Huang Rong that she used to like another man. I see. Huang Rong's thoughts returned to the Gem Mountain. No wonder Song Qingshu rushed to the Six Harmonies Pagoda like a madman. Hearing her talk about the past, Ren Yingying's eyes became more gentle. Yes, fortunately, he came in time. As a woman, how could Huang Rong not understand the meaning behind her eyes? She couldn't help but secretly sigh. Although Song Qingshu had all kinds of shortcomings, he was really good at stealing women's hearts. By this time, Ren Yingying had already given her a set of clean clothes. Huang Rong stopped thinking and began to change. Ren Yingying also found a set of clothes for herself. When she was changing, she glanced to the side and couldn't help but exclaim, Mrs. Guo, you still have such a good figure even though you're pregnant. How enviable. Huang Rong blushed slightly. She had never been praised like this by a woman before. She looked a little embarrassed. Miss Ren, your figure's also very good. When I was young, I couldn't compare to you. Ren Yingying looked at Huang Rong's chest, then lowered her head to look at her own chest. She said with envy, Mrs. Guo, why are you so big? Huang Rong was a little embarrassed. She thought that if she discussed this with Song Qingshu's woman, she might turn around and tell Song Qingshu about it. If she had known this would happen, she would have changed clothes separately. Miss Ren, you will also become bigger after you get married, and even bigger after you're pregnant. After all, Huang Rong was a married woman. She quickly concealed her shyness and said with a smile. This made Ren Yingying a little embarrassed. However, when she thought of the scene when she was pregnant, a strange look bloomed in her eyes. When the two women finished changing and came out, Song Qingshu's eyes couldn't help but brighten up. Great beauties are great beauties. Even after changing into a set of clothes, you still can't hide your natural beauty. Ren Yingying was happy, but she was still a little shy to be praised in front of others. She couldn't help but say, You always speak without thinking. Don't be rude to Mrs. Guo. It's okay, Huang Rong said with a smile. However, she felt extremely strange in her heart. She thought to herself, Your man has more than just been rude to me. Song Qingshu looked at her stomach and said with some worry, You've been tossing and turning for so long today. Pregnant women can't be tired. Do you want to rest? Huang Rong was startled. She couldn't help but sigh. No wonder there were so many outstanding women who were dead set on Song Qingshu despite his fickleness. In this society where men were superior to women, men who were so considerate and gentle to women were even rarer than rare treasures. Although she still cursed Song Qingshu's actions towards her, Huang Rong felt a trace of warmth in her heart. Thank you, but there's no need. After all, I have martial arts. My energy is better than that of a normal pregnant woman. Since that's the case, let's set off now. Song Qingshu brought the two women and quietly left Prince Qi's mansion. Murong Bo was like a dragon whose head and tail were nowhere to be seen. Finding him to settle accounts was really not easy. However, he had always been secretly concerned about the safety of his only son, Murong Fu. As long as Murong Fu was in danger, he would most likely appear. Song Qingshu already knew where Murong Fu was staying. Just a moment ago, he had confirmed his whereabouts with Han Xingzhou. After learning that Murong Fu had lost the martial arts competition, Murong Bo had left the imperial palace in a daze and returned to his residence. As a result, Song Qingshu's group of three headed straight for Murong Fu's residence. After walking for a while, Song Qingshu couldn't help but say, "How about I bring you over? This is too slow. If by any chance Murong Fu leaves that place, it will be troublesome." Huang Rong and Run Yingying glanced at each other. Actually, their Qinggong was pretty good in Jianghu. However, even at their peak, they were far from being able to catch up to Song Qingshu. Not to mention, one was pregnant and the other was heavily injured. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Ren Yingying didn't mind at all. However, Huang Rong hesitated. The meaning of bring and hug were more or less the same. Ren Yingying being Song Qingshu's woman didn't matter, but her identity, in fact, if it was just her and Song Qingshu, she wouldn't mind. After all, the two of them had been more intimate than that. However, people were strange. When there was a third party, they would have more concerns. Song Qingshu had roughly guessed her thoughts. He put his left hand around Run Yingying's slender waist and his right hand around Huang Rong. "Don't worry, Madame Hua. I won't hurt the child in your belly." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared into the depths of the street. Huang Rong was stunned, but she quickly realized that he had deliberately said this to resolve her embarrassment and find a reasonable explanation for her hesitation. She looked to the side and saw Ren Yingying snuggling in his arms with a happy face. Huang Rong couldn't help but smile. She had really become a frightened bird. How could others know about the relationship between her and Song Qingshu? It didn't take long for the three of them to arrive at Murong Fu's residence. From afar, they saw a figure hesitating through the window. Song Qingshu landed lightly and silently on the roof with the two women. Huang Rong couldn't help but secretly admire him. No matter what, Murong Fu was still a top master in Jianghu. He didn't even notice that Song Qingshu had landed on top of his head with two people. This skill was really unfathomable. At this moment, an old voice suddenly came from the house below. "Do you have a son?" The three people on the roof were shocked. They gathered their thoughts and listened attentively. They only heard Murong Fu's voice answering, "I haven't married yet. How can I have a son?" The old voice said coldly, "Do you have an ancestor?" Murong Fu was very angry and said loudly, "Of course I do. I'm willing to die. What does it have to do with you? A gentleman can be killed, but not humiliated. Murong Fu is a dignified man. I can't stand your rude words." Chapter 14:18. Hearing this, Ren Yingying was secretly shocked. Although this voice was old, it had a disdainful and domineering air to it. In addition, he mentioned Murong Jun, Murong Ku, Murong Chue, and Murong Da, who were all famous historical figures. Who was this person? She looked at Huang Rong and saw the same expression in her eyes. But she did not know that Huang Rong was even more shocked than she was, because she could tell that this person was the one who kidnapped her. Song Qingshu seemed to understand something. To verify his guess, he carefully lifted the roof tiles, and the three of them saw the situation in the room. Murong Fu's hair was disheveled as he stood in the room. In front of him was a masked elder who stood proudly. A dagger had fallen to the ground beside him. Although the three people on the roof had not personally seen what had happened, they could roughly guess what had happened. Murong Fu had probably lost the martial contest for the position of commander and had taken his own life after returning. However, he had been saved by the masked elder. The four people mentioned by the masked old man were all famous rulers of the Yin kingdom in the past. They had shaken the world with their might and created great achievements. They were Murong Fu's ancestors. Murong Fu was dizzy and furious, but when he suddenly heard the names of these four ancestors, it was as if a bucket of cold water was poured over his head. He thought, many years ago, my late father earnestly told me to make the rejuvenation of the great Yin my lifelong ambition. Today, because of a moment of anger, I have committed suicide. From now on, my Shinbei Murong clan will no longer exist in this generation. I don't even have a son. How can I talk about restoring the country? His back was covered with cold sweat. He knelt on the ground and said, Murong Fu's knowledge is limited. Thanks to Senior's guidance, I will never forget your kindness. The masked old man accepted his kowtow calmly and said, Since ancient times, which one of those who achieved great achievements did not go through untold hardships? Emperor Gaozu of Han had by Deng pleading for peace. Emperor Gaozu of Tang had the humiliation of surrendering to the Turkic Khaganate. If both of them were like you, they would only be narrow-minded people committing suicide. How could they talk about founding a nation? You are not even as good as Go Jian and Han Xin. You are really ignorant. Murong Fu knelt and accepted the lesson. He was frightened and said, This senior seems to know my ambition. He actually compared me with the founders of the Han dynasty and Tang dynasty. He said, Murong Fu knows he is wrong. The masked old man said, Get up. Murong Fu kowtowed 3 times and stood up. The masked old man said, Your Gusu's Murong clan's inherited martial art is marvelous and profound. It is matchless in the world. It's just that you have not mastered it yet. Look carefully. Stretching out his index finger, he pointed 3 times toward the ceiling. Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed when he felt 2 sharp finger winds coming at him. He grabbed Ren Yingying and Huang Rong's shoulders and dodged them in a flash. After this, Murong Fu, Murong Fu, and Fu, yelled Ming. Murong Ming, you said, and Fu won. The masked old man said loudly, This is the Murong family's joint finger. I learned it from your ancestor, but I only knew a little about it. I don't know how many other wonderful martial arts the Murong clan has. Don't tell me that you, a young man, can create the great name of Gusu's Murong clans, paying them back in their own coin. Senior's words are enlightening. May I know Senior's name? How should I address you? Murong Fu asked in admiration. I am only acquainted with the elders of your Murong clan. My name is not needed. The masked old man answered indifferently. He then turned to the side and looked at the door. The 2 of you have come in the middle of the night. Why don't you come in and have a chat? When Huang Rong and Ren Yingying, who were outside the door, heard his words, they looked at Song Qingshu in shock. They had only quickened their breathing a little, and that person had already discovered them. It was clear that his martial arts were great, but they did not expect him to not notice Song Qingshu's existence at all. The great name of Gusu's Murong clans, paying them back in their own coin, was naturally not created by you, Sir Murong. Since his tracks were exposed, Song Qingshu naturally did not need to hide it. He brought the 2 women inside and said, Old Mr. Murong, you moved unhindered in the world and built up such a great reputation in the past. Why do you have to hide like this now? Why do you not dare to reveal your identity in front of your son? When a masked old man heard Song Qingshu's words, his body trembled. The calmness in his eyes instantly disappeared and was replaced with deep shock and fear. However, at this time, Murong Fu was even more shocked than him. When he heard Song Qingshu's words, he couldn't help but look at the masked old man with joy. Father, is that you? At this time, the masked old man didn't pay any attention to him. Instead, he stared at the door. His whole body was on guard, as if he was facing a great enemy. Song Qingshu led Ren Yingying and Huang Rong to the door. Before they reached the door, it was as if the door was pushed open by a pair of invisible hands, allowing the 2 sides to finally meet face to face. Murong Bo, we meet again. Song Qingshu said with a light smile. His hands were behind his back, as if his whole body was defenseless. However, the opponent's attack was not launched at all. The masked old man coldly snorted. At this time, there was no need to hide his identity. He took off his mask. Sure enough, it was Morongbo's father. Morongfu was surprised and happy. He hurriedly went to greet him. At this time, he had a lot of things to say to him. Morongbo raised his hand to stop him. We can talk about other things later. Let's deal with this great enemy first. Morongfu was startled. In his impression, his father was a person who thought highly of himself. Moreover, he knew how high his father's martial arts were. He really couldn't imagine that his father would actually say something like joining hand with others. Although Morongfu had been defeated several times in Jianghu in recent years, he was still a top expert in Jianghu. He was confident that if he joined hands with his father, they could even kill an expert like Xiaofeng. He really couldn't think of anything that could make them, father and son, afraid. However, when he saw Song Qingshu's appearance, he was instantly shaken. It must be known that he had come into contact with Song Qingshu several times. He was very clear on how unfathomable the opposite party was. Brother Song, may I know why you have come this time? Seeing his father pull out his swords at the sight of Song Qingshu, Morongfu was secretly frightened. He hurriedly went forward and tried to ease the atmosphere. After all, he and Song Qingshu had some friendship. Song Qingshu smiled. Prince Morong, you don't need to worry. This time, I'm not here to look for you, but to look for your father. Morongfu was speechless. He thought, is there any difference between you looking for me and my father? Could it be that I can just stand by and watch? Morongbo's face twitched, and he said in a cold voice, the grudge between us and the Jin Kingdom last time has already been settled. So, what are you doing here this time? Settled? I'm afraid not. Song Qingshu looked at his broken finger. At this time, you must be itching to tear me to pieces to take revenge for your broken finger. What? Morongfu was shocked. In fact, before he and his son met, he had already noticed that Song Qingshu's finger was broken. At that time, he was still surprised about what kind of expert could injure this mysterious expert's finger. He didn't expect that it was actually Song Qingshu. You can't blame others for your inferior skill. Morongbo very well hid the resentment in his eyes. You don't need to rush to show your attitude. This time, I'm not here to settle old debts. Song Qingshu smiled, pointed to Huang Rong beside him, and said, Madame Gua is my friend. This time, I'm here to stand up for her. Morongbo's complexion slightly changed. I don't know what you're talking about. Is that so? Song Qingshu's tone had a hint of sarcasm. Your Excellency is also a well-known figure in Jianghu. Why do you dare to do something but not dare to admit it? If you want to incriminate someone, you can always find a pretext. Morongbo angrily said. I wonder how you plan to stand up. Song Qingshu didn't directly answer him. Instead, he turned to Huang Rong and gently asked, Madame Gua, how do you plan to deal with him? This. Huang Rong was instantly embarrassed. First, Song Qingshu asked her in front of so many people, which made her heart beat several times faster. Second, the other side's question was very difficult to answer. In fact, when she thought that the other side was the one who caused her husband to lose such a good opportunity, she couldn't wait to cut him into 8 pieces. But Morongbo's fame in Jianghu was illustrious. He was a master-level expert. Not to mention her, even if Jing Gige went to his door, he might not necessarily be able to deal with him. Wanting to kill such a master-level expert was even more impossible. She was already very grateful that Song Qingshu helped her take revenge. So how could she make a request that would make things difficult for him? Before Huang Rong could answer, Morongbo flew into a rage. Last time, I was defeated by you by half a move. Could it be that you really think that you can defeat me? After all, he was an expert among experts. He had the pride of a master-level expert. In addition, he was ignored by Song Qingshu in front of his son and was treated like a fish waiting to be slaughtered to please a woman. How could he bear such an insult? As for the last time he lost to Song Qingshu, Morongbo concluded that it was because he was too arrogant. He thought that his joined finger was invincible. So he went to fight head-on against Song Qingshu's sword chi. If he had fully utilized Murong Bo's specialty of being well-versed in 100 schools of thought and avoided fighting head-on, he might have been able to fight. Moreover, this time, he had his son's help. With the father and son working together, where in the world couldn't they go? Song Qingshu turned his head around. There's no point in talking too much. We'll only know after we fight. After experiencing this matter, he clearly knew that keeping a top-notch expert who was filled with resentment towards him in the dark was like nurturing a tiger that would invite calamity. So, he might as well use this opportunity to stand up for Huang Rong and completely end this grudge. As soon as he finished speaking, he appeared in front of Murong Fu and grabbed his vital acupoint. He had made up his mind to instantly kill one of them at the very beginning. Otherwise, it would be quite troublesome for the father and son to work together. Murong Fu only felt his vision blur. Before he could react, the other party had already attacked him. He sighed inwardly. My life is over. Fortunately, Murong Bo had been ready since just now. He had even fought with Song Qingshu in the Jin Kingdom before, so he knew how terrifying his speed was. Thus, he was on guard from the very beginning. At the critical moment, he blocked the attack for his son, and the two of them were instantly engaged in battle. After all, Murong Bo was one of the top-notch experts in Jianghu. In addition, Gusu's Murong family had a long history of learning and had dozens of years of fighting experience. Therefore, he was able to block Song Qingshu with some difficulty. However, at the same time, he complained inwardly. After exchanging a few moves with Song Qingshu, he had already sensed his opponent's killing intent. He knew that he might not be able to have a good ending this time. His initial optimism had completely disappeared. He knew that even if he used all his skills, he would probably be subdued in less than 10 moves. At this time, Song Qingshu was also somewhat depressed. In the original work, the sweeping monk could instantly kill Murong Bo, but he had fought with him several times. He was clear that it was impossible for him to instantly kill Murong Bo. However, he didn't think that he was worse than the sweeping monk. The main reason was that the sweeping monk had secretly observed Murong Bo for decades. He was very clear about Murong Bo's martial arts. Naturally, he was also very clear about Murong Bo's weaknesses. In addition, at that time, Murong Bo was already somewhat possessed by the devil. Therefore, being instantly killed was actually caused by many factors and coincidences. At this time, Murong Fu finally reacted. Seeing that his father was faintly at a disadvantage from the very beginning, he hurriedly pulled out his sword and rushed forward. Don't hurt my father. On the other side, Huang Rong was shocked. She had watched the previous martial arts competition. Murong Fu was originally a top-notch expert who was only a bit weaker than Xiaofeng. In addition, he had obtained the 18 subduing dragon palms, which greatly increased his strength. In addition, there was also Murong Bo, who had been famous for decades. If the father and son joined hands, no matter how high Song Qingshu's martial arts were, he might not be able to resist. Chapter 1419. Although Ren Yingying and Song Qingshu had not been together for a long time, she had seen him fight many times. At the beginning, she had seen him fight Dongfang Bubi at the Blackwood Cliff. At that time, although his martial arts were very high, it was still within the scope of her understanding. But later, when she saw him again, whether it was during the Golden Snake meeting or when he fooled her into bowing to heaven and earth to get married, his martial arts could be said to be getting higher and higher. She could not even see his back, especially several times when Song Qingshu carried her with one hand and dealt with a group of enemies with the other hand. That natural and unrestrained way of lifting something heavy as if it was light left an indelible impression on her. No matter how high Murong Bo and Murong Fu's martial arts were, they could not compare to Shaolin's Xiancheng and Feng Zheng's great master, and they could not compare to Wudong's Zhang Sanfeng. Song Qingshu could even deal with those people, so naturally, he could also deal with Murong father and son. Seeing how calm Ren Yingying was, Huang Rong also reacted. It was not like she had never seen Song Qingshu fight before, so why was she so nervous? Could it be that she was worried and confused? At this time, the situation of the battle changed again. Murong Bo and Murong Fu's martial arts were of the same origin. When the two of them joined hands, their power could be said to have reached the effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. Even for Song Qing-shu, it was somewhat strenuous to deal with them. Seeing that the situation was gradually changing, Murong Bo was overjoyed. Surnamed Song, you are young and successful. Don't be so frivolous. Is that so? Song Qing-shu coldly snorted, and suddenly his figure disappeared into thin air. The next second, he reappeared between the two of them. He pointed his finger at Murong Fu and punched Murong Bo. Because Song Qing-shu had disappeared into thin air, and when he reappeared, he attacked from an impossible angle. Murong Fu simply didn't have enough time to react before his acupoint was sealed. Murong Bo also turned pale with fright. However, his martial arts were much higher than his son's, so he hastily used revolving star passage technique in an attempt to dissolve Song Qing-shu's thunderous punch. Unfortunately, even after using 100% of his revolving star transposition, he was only able to shift the opponent's fist by an inch to the side. He was still punched in the chest. With a cry, he spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. It was as if all of his spirit had been consumed in that instant. Song Qing-shu's other hand pressed down on the top of his head. Murong Bo's eyes widened. Unfortunately, at this time, his body was in turmoil, as if all his meridians were broken, so he could not summon any internal force to resist. Have mercy! Murong Fu panicked when he saw this. Unfortunately, his acupoints had already been sealed, so he could only open his mouth and shout. Song Qing-shu's palm stopped an inch away from Murong Bo's head. He turned around and looked at Murong Fu. Give me a reason? Previously, using conventional fighting methods to deal with Murong father and son was indeed troublesome. Therefore, he had no choice but to increase his speed. As the saying goes, in the world of martial arts, there is nothing that cannot be overcome, but speed is the only thing that cannot be overcome. Murong Bo's cultivation and decades of experience in reading hundreds of schools of thought in front of an absolute disparity in speed instantly lost all meaning. That year, when you went to Swallow Dock to seek medical treatment, after all, I also helped you. Looking at this sentiment, can you let my father go? Murong Fu hastily said. Song Qing-shu shook his head. These years, I have been lenient to you several times. Not long ago, I even gave you the Beggar Clan's secret 18 dragon subduing palms. That year's sentiment, I've already paid you back more than enough. While speaking, his palm pressed down by an inch, pressing on the top of Murong Bo's head. As long as he exerted his strength, a Grandmaster-level character would die on the spot. Don't! Murong Fu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind, and he hastily said, I know the whereabouts of Murong Jingyue. Just as Song Qing-shu was about to exert his strength, he suddenly heard this news. He abruptly turned around and looked at him. Really? He couldn't help but care. These years, Icy Snow had been running around to track down Murong Jingyue. Xiaomin had also been poisoned by his 3-corpse brain divine pill. Seeing that the time for the poison to take effect was getting closer and closer, it could be said that finding Murong Jingyue was an urgent matter. Seeing his expression, Murong Fu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. This is related to my father's life. How would I dare to lie? Song Qing-shu suddenly frowned. I used so many resources, but I still couldn't find his whereabouts. How could you find him? It had to be known that apart from him, Zhao Min had also used the Mongolian intelligence network, but she had never been able to find any news about Murong Jingyue. Could a declining Murong family be more powerful than the Ryong Mansion and the Golden Snake Camp? Murong Fu hastily explained. After all, Murong Jingyue is a descendant of the Murong family. I can find his whereabouts through some special methods of the family. Okay, tell me the whereabouts of Murong Jingyue, and I'll let your father go. With a flick of his finger, Song Qing-shu unsealed Murong Fu's acupoint. Compared to Murong Bo, Murong Jingyue, a poisonous snake hiding in the dark, was more dangerous. Murong Fu stretched his body to dredge his muscles and bones. Originally, he wanted to help his father up, but seeing that Song Qingshu didn't intend to move his hand away, he knew that Song Qingshu was waiting for his answer, so he didn't dare to be negligent. According to the latest news, Murong Jingyue should be hiding in Shijing, Liao. In the heyday of Liao, there were 5 capitals: Shangjing, Zhongjing, Dongjing, now Liaoyang, Nanjing, now Beijing, and Shijing. However, in this world, the Jin kingdom and the Qing dynasty rose, and Liao lost a large part of its territory. Among the 5 capitals, only Shijing was left, which was later known as Datong. Although Liao had 5 nominal capitals, because of the tradition of Liao, the emperor was patrolling in 4 seasons, and there was a system of 4 seasons, so the capital was not fixed. However, this tradition had been broken now, and a large part of Liao's territory had fallen. Now, the actual control of the territory around Shaanxi, and it couldn't be like before, so the capital was gradually fixed in Shijing. Murong Jingyue is in Shijing. Song Qingshu's heart trembled. No wonder he couldn't find him. This area was really empty. Where is he in Shijing? Murong Fu shook his head. I don't know. I just analyzed that he is in Shijing through various kinds of information. As for where he is in Shijing, or what his identity is, it's a mystery. Song Qingshu could actually understand this. After all, Murong Jingyue was more cunning than anyone else, and he was also good at disguise. If it was so easy for Murong Fu to find out everything, he wouldn't be Murong Jingyue. However, knowing that Murong Jingyue was in Shijing was already a big progress. Song Qingshu believed that with his and Zhao Min's power, there would be a way to find him. Prince Song, can you let go of my father? Murong Fu stared at his palm. His heart was hanging in the air. Song Qingshu nodded and retracted his hand, then said with a smile, "This time, I had some misunderstanding with old Mr. Murong, but now that the misunderstanding has been solved, we are still friends." Murong Bo almost vomited blood in anger when he heard his words. He thought, "You beat me half to death, and then say it was a misunderstanding? We're still friends." He really wanted to loudly scold. I have never seen such a shameless person. However, when he thought of the opposite party's martial arts, he could only swallow his anger. Song Qingshu thought for a moment, and probably felt somewhat embarrassed. He took out a pill from his bosom and placed it on the table. "Old Mr. Murong has suffered a little injury. I just happen to have a healing pill here. Consider it as an apology for disturbing you this time." Murong Fu glanced at the pill on the table, and his heart jumped. However, he didn't dare to show it on his face. Prince Song is too serious. It's just a misunderstanding. Both sides exchanged a few more polite words, and then Song Qingshu left with Huang Rong and Ren Yingying. When they left the courtyard, Song Qingshu said to Huang Rong with an apologetic look, "Because Murong Jingyue's whereabouts is very important to me, so I didn't completely help you this time. I'm really sorry." In fact, he could have killed Murong Jingyue after learning his whereabouts, but he didn't do so. After all, everyone should have their own principles. It must be known that even a big villain like Western Poison Ouyang Feng would pay great attention to the style of a great master and disdain to do some things. It was precisely because of this kind of persistence that determined a person's style and bearing. If a person had no principles, then he was bound to be despised by everyone. Huang Rong hurriedly said, "Don't say that. I'm already very grateful to you for today's matter." She estimated that even if her husband Guijing and father Huang Yaoshe came together, they might not be able to achieve such an effect. After all, the Murong family's Big Dipper technique had shaken the world for many years. It was really too mysterious. Even if they could win, they might not be able to seriously injure Murong Bo. Song Qingshu smiled. Speaking of which, Murong Bo has suffered such a serious injury, he shouldn't think about fighting for the next few years. This can also be considered as helping you vent your anger. Thank you. Huang Rong cautiously looked at Ren Yingying on the side. She was always worried that Song Qingshu standing up for her would make her feel that something was wrong. Fortunately, Ren Yingying didn't think too much about it. On the contrary, she worriedly asked. Qingshu, Murong father and son must hate you to the bone. Even if you leave behind a healing panacea, they won't be grateful to you. Instead, it will speed up his recovery. Will they let the tiger return to the mountain? Huang Rong pursed her lips and smiled. Miss Ren, do you really think he would be so kind as to leave a healing panacea to other people? Ren Yingying was startled at first, but she wasn't stupid. She quickly reacted. Is that a fake medicine? Madame Guo is still smart. Song Qingshu gave Huang Rong a thumbs up, making her roll her eyes. In fact, it can't be considered as lying to him. The leopard embryo tendon changing pill is indeed very good for the body in the early stage. Leopard embryo tendon changing pill. Ren Yingying spat. How can you be so bad? What if he really eats it? Don't worry. With Murong Bo's sly and suspicious character, he absolutely won't eat it. Song Qingshu said as if he could foresee the future. At this time, in Murong Fu's residence, Murong Bo crushed the pill into pieces. His complexion was as cold as ice. Murong Fu anxiously said, This medicine. Murong Bo coldly snorted. Do you think that Brat would be so kind? So that's how it is. Murong Fu nodded as if he had sensed something. He suddenly knelt on the ground. Father, please forgive me. Just now, Father was humiliated, but I couldn't avenge you. Instead, I have to bow and scrape to the enemy. Chapter 14:20. Murong Fu was shocked and said, Father, you are right. I have learned a lot. Murong Bo said in a deep voice, Song Qingshu's martial arts are unfathomable. It is not a matter of a day to find him for revenge, so you don't have to worry. Now, there's another urgent matter. What is it? Murong Fu asked curiously. Murong Bo looked in the direction of the imperial palace and said, This time, I have used all kinds of means and used countless connections to make you a candidate for the competition, but you failed. Murong Fu was ashamed when he heard that. I am useless. Murong Bo waved his hand and said, It is over, so it is meaningless to talk about it. However, I'm not the only one who has used all kinds of means. Jia Sherdao is also determined to get the military power of Sichuan. This time, you have disappointed him, and he will certainly not let you go. Murong Fu's face changed slightly. He knew very well how powerful Jia Sherdao was. The Murong family seemed to be glorious, but as long as Jia Sherdao wanted, the Murong family of Gusu would probably be removed from the Jianghu. This time, Jia Sherdao has paid so much, but it was all in vain. He will definitely be angry, and it will be easy for him to vent his anger on you. Murong Bo said in a deep voice, You are the only descendant of the Murong family. Nothing can happen to you. Just in case, you must be prepared. How should I prepare? Murong Fu had just been enlightened, and he had thought everything through. In order to revive the Yin kingdom, everything could only be possible if he lived well. You will replace Guo Jing's position. Murong Bo's eyes flashed with a hint of viciousness. When the time comes, you can blame everything on Guo Jing, saying that he has secretly joined Han Xingzhou. So he deliberately gave up. Murong Fu frowned and felt that there were many flaws in this statement. He said, But Jia Sherdao may not believe it. Have you forgotten who came with Song Qingshu just now? Murong Bo's eyes showed a hint of resentment. Huang Rong. Murong Fu vaguely felt that he had grasped the clue. That's right. Murong Bo grinned and said, You can tell Jia Sherdao that Huang Rong has never disappeared. All of this is a game of thief crying thief. It's also that Guo Jing can justifiably give up. Wonderful. Murong Fu couldn't help but clap his hands in praise. He suddenly thought of something and said, But if Guo Jing is Han Xingzhou's person, why did he forfeit? No matter who wins or loses, he's still Han Xingzhou's person. Murong Bo explained, This shows that Han Xingzhou still does not trust Guo Jing that much. He is worried that when Guo Jing obtains Sichuan's military power, he will not be able to control it. And in front of so many experts in the palace, Guo Jing also cannot lose to Wu Tianda on purpose. Therefore, he can only give up as a proof of his allegiance. Murong Fu couldn't help but give a thumbs up and said, "This explanation is reasonable, and Jia Sherdao will definitely believe it. However, Hirogua is so righteous that he took the blame for me. I always feel that." Murong Bo snorted and interrupted him. "Today I was seriously injured. Although I was injured by Song Qing-shu in the final analysis, it was because of that slut Huang Rong. Now, we don't have the ability to take revenge on Song Qing-shu, so it's reasonable to collect some interest from Huang Rong and her husband." Song Qing-shu returned to the house with Huang Rong and Ren Yingying. Huang Rong couldn't help but yawn, and her pretty face was full of exhaustion. Song Qing-shu remembered that she was pregnant, and it was easy for her to get tired. Today, she was able to last until now because she had been cultivating the Nine Sutra all these years. Her internal strength had reached a certain level, and her spirit was much better than ordinary women. "Mrs. Gua, I will arrange a quiet house for you." "You should rest early," said Song Qing-shu. "I don't want a quiet house," Huang Rong said hurriedly. Seeing the surprised eyes of the other two, she hurriedly said, "I actually don't like quiet. I have been locked in the palace for a long time, and I almost got sick because of it. I want someone to talk to me. Miss Ren, I don't know if you mind if I sleep with you?" Ren Yingying was stunned at first, and then she smiled and said, "Of course not." Huang Rong was a legendary woman in Jianghu, and Ren Yingying had always admired her. She would definitely learn a lot if she could have a chance to talk to her closely. "That's great." Huang Rong smiled sweetly. In fact, it was just an excuse that she didn't like quiet. She was worried that if she lived in a quiet house, Song Qing-shu would come to steal her in the middle of the night, and no one would hear her even if she called for help. However, even if she didn't live in a quiet place, she couldn't rest assured. After all, Song Qing-shu's martial arts were too high, and if he really wanted to do something, she couldn't do anything. After all, Huang Rong was famous for her intelligence, and she quickly thought of a solution. Since it was dangerous to live alone, then she would live with someone. In the entire palace, the best person was Ren Yingying. Firstly, she had an engagement with Song Qing-shu. How could she tolerate her man doing anything to another woman in front of her? Secondly, after a short time together, Huang Rong had already figured out that Ren Yingying was an extremely reserved and shy woman, and would never accompany Song Qing-shu to fool around. Song Qing-shu wasn't stupid, and he quickly understood the crux of the matter. He couldn't help but feel angry and amused. Huang Rong was really so guarded against him. Was she really afraid that he would use force on her? Understanding was one thing, and agreeing was another. It was fine if Huang Rong was guarded against him, but why did she pull Ren Yingying along? It wasn't easy for his relationship with Yingying to improve by leaps and bounds, and it was a good opportunity to go further, but it was interrupted by Huang Rong. "Yingying, your body and bones are injured, and I have to nourish your meridians every day. It's a little inconvenient." Song Qing-shu found a reason to stop her. Ren Yingying pursed her lips and smiled. "I'll go to your room to heal during the day, and I'll talk to Sister Huang at night." Huang Rong was like a star in Jianghu, a heroine in the hearts of many women. Ren Yingying was full of excitement at the thought of communicating with her like this. Huang Rong was a little surprised. "Miss Ren, in fact, I noticed that your face seemed to be a little gloomy before. It turns out that you were really injured." Song Qing-shu was about to explain, but Ren Yingying was afraid that if he said it, Huang Rong would be embarrassed to live with her. So she hurriedly said, "Sister Huang, I'll talk to you later." As she spoke, she pushed Song Qing-shu out. "Get out, Madame Gua, and are going to wash up and go to bed. It's not convenient for a man like you to stay here." Song Qing-shu was speechless. He wanted to stay a little longer, but thinking of Ren Yingying's weak body, his heart was full of pity, and he didn't want to make her angry. Although Ren Yingying pushed him with little strength, he still pretended to stagger and was pushed out. Huang Rong saw all this. After Ren Yingying closed the door, she couldn't help but say, "Miss Ren, he really cares about you. That's because you haven't seen the time when he bullied me." Ren Yingying pursed her lips and smiled, and her eyes were flowing with happiness. Huang Rong complained in her heart, "Is he as good as when he bullied me?" She was experienced, and it was easy for her to judge that Ren Yingying was still a young girl. She couldn't help but secretly sigh that Song Qing-shu, that lecherous man, had always been obedient to her, thinking about what Song Qing-shu had done to her. Huang Rong felt a little disappointed. She had always felt that he truly loved Ren Yingying and was full of desire for her. Bah, why am I thinking about this? Huang Rong instantly woke up and began to ask about Ren Yingying's body to divert her attention. Ren Yingying then slowly told Huang Rong what had happened that night. Her tone was calm, but it still made Huang Rong's heart skip a beat. After Song Qing-shu left Ren Yingying's room, he looked at the sky. It was too late to attend the banquet in the palace, and he had no interest in pretending to be courteous with those people. In addition, he had been running around in a short period of time. Today, he had finally rescued Huang Rong. He was relieved and suddenly felt a wave of exhaustion. He just wanted to have a good sleep. However, it was a little lonely to sleep alone. Song Qing-shu thought for a moment, and his eyebrows moved. He walked in the direction of Chun Yuanyuan's room. One monk fetched water. 3 monks had no water to drink. Previously, because of the checks and balances between the women and their own reservations, Song Qing-shu had no water to drink. Now that Ren Yingying was held back by Huang Rong, he could go find the third woman. Chun Yuanyuan was sitting in the room in a daze when she suddenly heard the door open. She saw Song Qing-shu pushing the door open and couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Why are you here?" Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sigh that Chun Yuanyuan was really worthy of being called a femme fatale. Even sitting there in a daze was a beautiful painting. "What? I'm not welcome." Chun Yuanyuan went over and smiled. "Of course not. I'm just curious why you didn't accompany your little madam today. Instead, you came to my place. From your words, are you jealous?" Song Qing-shu walked forward and held her in his arms. Her soft body was so comfortable that he couldn't help but moan. "Who's jealous?" Chun Yuanyuan blushed and hurriedly tried to push him away. "Don't be like this. If they see us, I won't have the face to see others." During this time, the atmosphere in the Wang Fu could be said to be very strange. Other than Ren Yingying being Song Qing-shu's woman, Chun Yuanyuan and Luo Bing had never revealed their relationship with Song Qing-shu. "Don't worry, right now Yingying and Guo Furen are talking all night. They won't find out what happened here." Song Qing-shu roughly explained what had happened when he went out. "You're really amazing." Chun Yuanyuan's pair of starry eyes bloomed with a charming light. "I've been in the South for a long time and know a lot of things in the palace. Not to mention Murong Fu's reputation in Jianghu. His martial arts were qualified to be an imperial weapon. It's just that I don't know why he declined. His father's martial arts must be even higher. The two of them combined couldn't defeat you." Song Qing-shu waved his hand. "Today, let's not talk about swords and blades, only about wind and moon." Chun Yuanyuan spat. "You're always so frivolous." Song Qing-shu chuckled and suddenly thought of something. "That's right. I didn't have time to tell you just now. Today I saw Aku in the palace." Hearing the news of her daughter, Chun Yuanyuan instantly grabbed his arm. "How has Aku been recently? Is her body all right? Did she encounter any danger?" Seeing her nervous expression, Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "Don't worry. She's fine except that she misses you." Chapter 14:21. Hearing Chun Yuanyuan's words, Song Qing-shu paused. "No way. She looked like she wanted to kill me. Who asked you to trick her into coming to Yin, Jing City? To a certain extent, her current misfortune is all because of you." Chun Yuanyuan glared at him. Song Qing-shu smiled embarrassedly. "I didn't have a choice back then." Chun Yuanyuan couldn't help but think of the first time she met Song Qing-shu. She was a high and mighty Wang Fei, and he was respectful to her. Who would have thought that one day she would lie under him and enjoy himself? Thinking of all those embarrassing scenes, Chun Yuanyuan's face heated up, but she suddenly thought of her daughter's thoughts, and the blush faded. "What do you plan to do with Ako?" Chun Yuanyuan suddenly blinked her large, watery eyes and looked at him quietly. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. "Aku is the most favored imperial consort of the Southern Song now. I don't need to arrange anything." "Most favored?" Chen Yuanyuan was a bit angry at Song Qingshu's pretense. It's not like you don't know Ku's situation in the palace. She has the title of imperial consort, but not the real imperial consort. Alone in the palace, she has to face the open and hidden attacks of the other concubines. She has always longed for freedom outside and is waiting for someone to save her. At this point, Song Qingshu could only reply, "Don't worry. Actually, I promised her before that I would save her from the palace in the future." The reason he didn't save her now was because the impact was too bad. The most favored imperial consort in the palace eloped with someone. Even if Zhao Go wasn't her real husband and didn't have any feelings for her, he would still investigate for the sake of his reputation. Once he was found out, a war was unavoidable. Song Qingshu was usually a bit lustful, but he was very clear-headed at critical moments. How could he start a war for a woman? Secondly, Aku shouldered the responsibility of his father, Wu Sangui, and the Southern Song Alliance. Now that Wu Sangui was gradually falling into a disadvantageous position in the war against the Manchurian Qing, if he lost the Southern Song Alliance as well, the situation would only get worse. Aku himself did not want to leave at this time and cause his father to fall into a desperate situation. With Aku's current identity, even if you rescue her, I'm afraid she won't be able to show her face in public for the rest of her life. How do you plan to settle her? Chen Yuanyuan was not very satisfied with his answer and continued to ask, "How?" Song Qingshu pondered for a while and replied, "Don't worry. When the time comes, I'll find a place where the forces of the Southern Song and Wu Sangui can't reach and settle her down. If she meets someone she likes, I'll prepare a generous dowry for her. I promise that she won't suffer a loss." Chen Yuan faintly sighed. Aku is a Junju, and now she is the imperial concubine. How can she still like an ordinary man? Moreover, which man would dare to marry her? She paused for a moment and looked at Song Qingshu with a faint smile. Besides, are you willing to let her marry another man? Song Qingshu's heart jumped, and he said somewhat unnaturally, "Why wouldn't I be willing?" Chen Yuanyuan rolled her eyes at him. "Aku's beauty is not below mine. I understand you men very well. How could you be willing to let her fall into the arms of another man?" Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. "You misunderstand. I've always liked to help others achieve their dreams." Help others achieve their dreams? Seeing that he still didn't admit it, Chen Yuanyuan finally became angry. That time, who sneaked into Ku's palace and did those things to the two of us? Thinking of the thing in her mouth when she woke up, the taste was still fresh in Chen Yuanyuan's memory. At that time, she felt very disgusted, but now that her relationship with Song Qingshu had developed to this point, she felt more ashamed and angry when she thought about it. Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. "That night, I actually didn't do anything to you. It was Yuanji who wanted to take revenge on the two of you for hurting her so badly before, so she deliberately scared you." After listening to him tell the whole story, Chen Yuanyuan couldn't help but spit. "That girl is really mean. She's also a poor person. I hope you don't blame her." Song Qingshu couldn't help but speak up for Li Yuanji. "Don't worry. It was us who hurt her first. It's fair to pay back what we did." Some time ago, Chen Yuanyuan lived with Li Yuanji in the Cold Palace. The grievances between the two women had already disappeared, and they became good friends. Although nothing really happened that night, but Chen Yuanyuan suddenly raised her head, with a trace of inexplicable meaning in her eyes. "Haven't you ever thought that something really happened?" Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly denied it. "I'm not a beast. How can I have that kind of dirty thought?" As he said this, he secretly cried out in shame. Chen Yuanyuan spat. "Bah, it's not like I don't know what you men think. With my and Ku's beauty, who knows how many men in this world want to get us mother and daughter into the same bed. Don't tell me you haven't thought about it." Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. "I did have such a thought, but it was only a fleeting thing. The reason why people are different from beasts is that people have propriety, justice, integrity, and shame." Chen Yuanyuan reached out and pressed her hand on his lips. Her eyes suddenly revealed a hint of shyness. What if I don't mind?" Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat, and his voice became a little hoarse. What did you say? Chen Yuanyuan let go of his hand and slowly walked to the window. Looking at the moon in the sky, she said rather sadly, I've been homeless all my life and experienced many hardships. I don't want Aku to repeat my fate. But now the world is in chaos and the countries are fighting. The situation is worse than the end of the Ming dynasty. Aku has beauty that can cause the downfall of countries, but she doesn't have the ability to protect herself. If Zhao Go was a normal man, being an imperial concubine in the Southern Song dynasty would be a good ending. But Aku is fated to not be able to stay in the palace forever. When a new emperor ascends to the throne, Aku will not have an heir to rely on. I don't know how pitiful her ending will be. Actually, although this ending is a little pitiful, she can at least enjoy at least 10 years of glory and wealth. But now that the countries in the north are eyeing her, and the Southern Song dynasty has always been weak, the pitiful ending of those imperial concubines during the Jinkong Rebellion is still fresh in our minds. I don't want Aku to suffer that kind of pitiful fate in the future. Chen Yuanyuan suddenly turned around. That's why I want to find a strong man to protect her. I've thought about it, and you're the most suitable candidate. In addition, Aku has feelings for you. There's no better choice than this. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. With our current relationship, how can I have anything to do with Aku? Why not? Chen Yuanyuan looked at him quietly. Anyway, other people don't know about our relationship. When the time comes, I will quietly retreat behind the scenes and let Aku become your woman on the surface. But I don't want to lose you. Song Qingshu hurriedly grabbed her hand. Chen Yuanyuan's face blushed, and she said timidly, I didn't forbid you from coming to find me, as long as no one finds out. Song Qingshu was instantly overjoyed. Chen Yuanyuan continued, but you must give Aku a status equal to that of the ninth princess, Miss Run, and the others. This, Song Qingshu hesitated, putting aside the fact that Aku had once been an imperial concubine of the Southern Song. She was Wu Sangui's daughter. Jiao probably could not tolerate her. I know this is very difficult, but I know you will think of a way. Chen Yuanyuan paused, her expression suddenly showing a hint of shyness. To make up for all the trouble this has caused you, when the time comes, I can serve you with Aku. Is that true? Song Qingshu instantly became spirited. Thinking of that incomparably erotic scene, his entire heart beat twice as fast. Okay, no matter how difficult it is, I will definitely think of a way. Bah, you bastard, you really have been thinking of getting us mother and daughter on the same bed. Chen Yuanyuan's expression instantly changed. Her eyes were filled with anger, and there was no trace of shyness from before. Not expecting Chen Yuanyuan to change her attitude so quickly, Song Qingshu was stunned for a moment. You bastard, get out. Chen Yuanyuan picked up a pillow from the side and kept hitting him while pushing him out. When the door was closed, Song Qingshu finally reacted. It turned out that Chen Yuanyuan had been testing him on purpose. As soon as he thought of that incomparably alluring proposal, he instantly lost his mind and let down his guard. You can't play like this. You are enforcing the law by entrapment. Song Qingshu shouted through the door. Who asked you to have such a dirty mind in your heart? Get out. Chen Yuanyuan had always spoken very softly, but at this time she was obviously really angry. Song Qingshu knew that she was now angry. No matter what he said, it would only add fuel to the fire. He had to smile bitterly and said, I did have evil thoughts about this matter. Calm down first. I won't disturb you. The response to him was the sound of a teacup breaking on the door. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and had to turn around and leave. When returning to his room, Song Qingshu had to sigh that Chen Yuanyuan really deserved to be the first of the 8 beauties in Qinhuai. Her acting was so good that those Oscar winners and Best Actress in the previous life were far inferior to her. Her expression and tone just now were simply from the heart, or he would not be so easily fooled. Suddenly, he thought of something and looked in the direction of Chen Yuanyuan's room. What you said just now was really just a simple test. After this incident, several people in Prince Chi's mansion couldn't sleep, but in the entire Lin city, they were not the only ones who couldn't sleep. In the Jia's mansion, Jia Sherdao looked at the beautiful young woman kneeling on the ground with a gloomy face and said, "Before, you reported that Wu Tianda was exhausted, but why is he still lively today?" He had just returned from the imperial palace after attending a banquet, and the smile he had in the imperial palace was instantly replaced by frost. He immediately summoned the relevant people to start questioning. The beautiful young woman was naturally chin-kitching. She had always been afraid of the unpredictable master of the Jia's mansion. Kneeling there, she trembled all over and said, "I don't know what happened. Last night, he and I were entangled all night." Thinking of that mysterious man, that feeling that she had never felt before, Qin Keqing's heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Next to her, Jia Zhan felt sorry for her and couldn't help but speak for her. "Uncle, Keqing didn't lie. Is it possible that the internal energy that Wu Tianda practiced is a little special?" Jia Sherdao frowned and murmured to himself with some uncertainty. Today, Wu Tianda's qi seemed to be a little bit like the Shaolin's muscle bone strengthening scripture. Chapter 1422. North Xiaofeng, South Murong. Jia Shirdao's eyes were cold. "Has Murong Fu come?" Liao Yingzhong, the chief counselor standing next to him, answered, "My lord, Murong Fu has been waiting in the side hall for a long time. Let him come." Jia Shirdao snorted. Seeing Qin Keqing kneeling on the ground, he waved his hand impatiently. "You can leave now. Haven't you embarrassed yourselves enough?" "Yes." Jia Zhan felt like he had been pardoned. He took Qin Keqing and left. As soon as the two of them left, Murong Fu walked into the study. Seeing Jia Shirdao's gloomy face, his heart skipped a beat. He hurried forward and saluted. "Murong Fu greets you, Lord Jia." After Song Qing Shu and the others left, he was about to heal his father when the Jias sent someone to call him over. Murong Fu didn't dare to delay, so he hurried over. Because Jia Sherdao was still at the palace banquet, he had to wait in the side hall. The longer he waited, the more nervous he became. Jia Sherdao didn't seem to hear him. He drank his tea and treated Murong Fu, who was bowing in front of him, as if he didn't exist. Because Jia Sherdao didn't answer, Murong Fu couldn't stand up. He could only keep bowing. The tiredness wasn't the main reason. The main reason was that he was embarrassed. Soon, he was angry. Murong Fu was a famous figure in Jianghu. He was a guest of honor wherever he went. He had never been humiliated like this. If it were before, he might have left. However, he had been defeated by Wu Tianda, and Song Qingshu won after another today. So he was no longer arrogant. Coupled with his father's persuasion, he knew that temporary humiliation was nothing for the revival of the Yin kingdom. So he still bowed respectfully. Jia Shidao's face looked better. Liao Yingzhong, who was standing on the side, immediately came to ease the atmosphere. "My lord, Prince Murong is here." "Oh." Jia Sherdao acted as if he had just seen Murong Fu. "It's Prince Murong. Have a seat." Hearing the sarcasm in his tone, Murong Fu hurriedly declined. "I didn't do anything to deserve a reward." Murong Fu doesn't have the face to sit. Jia Sherdao sneered and said, "At least you know your place." Murong Fu's heart had long since calmed down. He turned a deaf ear to his sarcasm and maintained a respectful posture. "Prince Murong, you've disappointed me this time," Jia Sherdao snorted. Murong Fu's heart skipped a beat. The interrogation had begun. He hurriedly said, "I have failed to live up to your expectations. I really deserve to die." "You deserve death." Jia Sherdao slammed the table hard. "If it weren't for Wang Ziding, do you think you would still be standing here alive?" Wang Ziding's two biological sisters were married to Jia Sherdao, and the other was married to Shuiji. As for his third uncle's cousins, one married Li Qingluo, and the other married Murong Bo. Speaking of which, the Murong family was not only related to the Wang family by marriage, but also to the Jia family. Murong Fu's body stiffened. "Thank you for your mercy, my lord. Don't thank me too early. I haven't said I'll let you go yet." Jia Sherdao stood up. The great Morong Fu of Gusu can't even defeat a man who has lost his body to alcohol and women. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have replaced Guijing with you. Morong Fu suddenly hesitated and said, I have something about Guijing, and I don't know if I should tell you. Jia Shidao frowned and said, Speak. Did Guijing put on a show with Han Xingzhou and the others? Morong Fu told him the story his father had taught him. Jia Shidao didn't feel anything strange when he learned that Huang Rong was with Song Qingshu. It turned out that Zhao Go had kidnapped Huang Rong in order to hide it from everyone. In the palace, only Huang Chong, Zhao Go, the two eunuchs, and a few other people knew the inside story. Jia Shidao didn't know that Huang Rong had been kidnapped by the emperor. Now that he learned that she was with Song Qingshu, he suddenly realized why he couldn't find any information even after using so many resources. Okay, I got it. Jia Shidao didn't say anything about what Morong Fu said. You can leave now. Yes. Morong Fu secretly let out a sigh of relief, but he was stopped by Jia Shidao after a few steps. Wait. Jia Shidao hesitated and said, Although you lost the competition this time and didn't get the military power in Sichuan, I got you a position as the military transport envoy. Go back and pack your things and get ready to go to Sichuan. Morong Fu was overjoyed. Thank you, sir. The transport envoy was in charge of the money and food of a road. The concept of a road in the Song dynasty was similar to that of a province, and he also had the power to evaluate officials and so on. He was like the highest officer of a road. The military transport envoy didn't have that much power, and he was only responsible for the money and food needed by the army. But even so, it was still a position with real power. Morong Fu had been in the southern Song dynasty for many years, so he naturally knew about the official system. He also knew that Jia Shidao had lost the military power in Sichuan, so he had to find another way to install his trusted subordinates. Jia Shidao waved his hand and said, You can leave now. Someone will tell you the details. Yes. Morong Fu was so happy that his steps were lighter when he left. After Morong Fu left, Jia Shidao asked, What do you think of Morong Fu's words? Liao Yingzhong said in a low voice, Morong Fu is trying to shift the blame to others. Jia Shidao snorted and said, He is indeed shifting the blame, but what he said is not unreasonable. Liao Yingzhong frowned and said, But I don't think Guijing is a two-faced person. You can't judge a book by its cover. Jia Shidao sighed and said, Do you know what Han Xingzhou said to the emperor at the palace banquet? What did he say? Liao Yingzhong thought it must have something to do with Guijing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have looked like that. Jia Shidao sneered and said, Han Xingzhou recommended Guijing to the emperor as the deputy inspector of the front department. Humph, Guijing Han Xingzhou. Really? Liao Yingzhong was shocked. If that was the case, it would be very serious. Why would I lie to you? Jia Shidao narrowed his eyes and said with dissatisfaction, I wouldn't dare. Liao Yingzhong realized that he had said the wrong thing. He hurriedly asked, Did the emperor agree? Jia Shidao shook his head and said, The emperor has been very obedient to Han Xingzhou, but for some reason, the emperor rejected his request this time. Instead, he appointed him as the commander of Zhenjiang to prepare for the northern expedition. No matter how powerful Jia Shidao's intelligence network was, he didn't know that Guijing was the descendant of Guorong of the later Zhou dynasty. How could Zhao Go trust him to be the deputy inspector of the front department? What if Guijing followed Zhao Kuangyin's example and rebelled? Wouldn't that be the end of the world? Guijing is such a traitor. Liao Yingzhong hesitated and couldn't help but say, But Guijing doesn't look like someone who could design such a complicated plot. This plan might not have been Guijing's idea. Jia Shidao snorted and said, Don't forget that he has a good wife named Zhuge. Liao Yingzhong nodded and said, That makes sense. Jia Shidao walked to the window and looked at the stars in the sky. After a long time, he said, I won't let anyone who betrays me have a good ending. The temperature in the room suddenly dropped. Liao Yingzhong was shocked. She knew that he wanted to kill her, so she didn't dare to say another word. The next morning, Song Qingshu woke up with sleepy eyes. It turned out that Lin Pingji and Yu Lingshan had come to say goodbye to him. Last time at the banquet, Lin Ruhai introduced him to Lin Pingji. Knowing the relationship between Lin Pingji and Song Qing-shu, Lin Ruhai no longer looked down on this distant relative and quickly used his connections to get him a job. Because Sichuan had just been taken back, they urgently needed a large number of officials. So, even though Lin Pingji didn't have an official title, he still took the opportunity to get a job. Pingji, you have to take revenge in Sichuan, but don't let hatred blind your eyes. A real man is born in a chaotic world, and he should carry a 3-foot sword to accomplish great deeds. Compared to taking revenge, I believe that the ancestors of the Lin family hope that you can do well and bring honor to your ancestors, Song Qing-shu advised. Lin Pingji bowed respectfully and said, "Thank you for your advice, Brother Song." Song Qing-shu sighed secretly. Although Lin Pingji's tone was respectful, it was obvious that he didn't listen to what Song Qing-shu had said. At that moment, all he could think about was revenge. Looking at you, Lingshan, Song Qing-shu said, "Lingshan, take care of Pingji. Don't let him do anything impulsive." Yu Lingshan bowed and said sweetly, "Brother Song, I will." Looking at her rosy lips, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but recall the soft touch, and his heart couldn't help but flutter. But he quickly calmed down and began to think, Ling Hu Chong, I've done what I can. As for whether Yu Lingshan chooses you or Lin Pingji, it's up to you. I can't keep helping you without principles. Lin Pingji is also a pitiful person. In fact, sometimes he also thought about a problem. Was this unfair to Lin Pingji? Later, he gradually thought it through. Because of his involvement, Lin Pingji's ending was definitely better than the tragic one in the original. On the contrary, Ling Hu Chong's ending was much less happy. So, he more or less wanted to make it up to him. What Lin Pingji wanted most was revenge. He gave him martial arts manuals and gave him connections in the official circles. Ling Hu Chong wanted Yu Lingshan the most, so he could play the matchmaker. Hopefully, all three of them would have a good ending. Not long after Lin Pingji and Yu Lingshan left, Guijing came to visit. Huang Rong heard the news and came out of the inner chamber to welcome him. Fortunately, Song Qing-shu dismissed his servants in time, so her whereabouts were not exposed. Guijing said with a wry smile, "Rong or Brother Song, I'm actually here to say goodbye to you." Both Huang Rong and Song Qing-shu were taken aback. What happened? I was appointed as the commander of Zhenjiang by the imperial court. Today, I'm leaving for Zhenjiang to prepare for the northern expedition against the Jin kingdom. Guijing told them what happened at the palace banquet last night. Song Qing-shu was secretly shocked. He thought it would not be long before the southern Song dynasty started the northern expedition. He had to return to the Jin kingdom as soon as possible to prepare. Huang Rong said hurriedly, "Then I'll go with you." Guijing shook his head. "No. First, you just ran away from the palace. If you show up in front of me, it's hard to say how the emperor will react. Second, Zhenjiang is busy with military affairs, and it's dangerous. You're pregnant and need a rest. You can't take risks there." Huang Rong actually knew these things, but she was still worried when she heard it. "But I can't stay with Brother Song all the time." Chapter 1423. Guijing was delighted. "That's great. Peach Blossom Island is quiet and safe. Rong, you can stay there and rest." The Peach Blossom Island was located in the vast ocean, and there were all kinds of Chimin Duanjiang mechanisms on the island. Not to mention ordinary people. Even experts of the 5 uniques could easily get trapped on the island if they did not have a map of the Peach Blossom Island's mechanisms. Letting Huang Rong return to Peach Blossom Island was the best of both worlds. Huang Rong's eyes also brightened. Given the current situation, it was clearly inconvenient for her to return to Xiangyang. Peach Blossom Island was the place where she had grown up, and it was also the place where she was happiest. Compared to staying in the Prince of Cheese Mansion, where she had to live in constant fear, Peach Blossom Island was much better. It would be best if she could send a messenger pigeon to inform her father to return. With the Eastern heretic Huang Yaoshi's protection, regardless of whether it was a thief or Song Qing-shu, none of them would dare to act recklessly. Seeing their reactions, Song Qingshu smiled. Then it's decided. Now that the Southern Song dynasty's northern expedition was imminent, he had to return to the Jin kingdom as soon as possible to take charge of the overall situation. Otherwise, if the Southern Song dynasty's troops were unstoppable, his hard work in the Jin kingdom would be in vain. Now that he was leaving Lin, he was worried about leaving Huang Rong here, so he simply took her with him. Anyway, Lin was not far from Peach Blossom Island. When he returned from Peach Blossom Island, he could pass by Yangzhou to arrange things there. "Sorry to trouble you, Brother Song," Guo Jing said apologetically. Obviously, he was about to leave for Zhenjiang, but he had to let someone else escort his wife, which made him very embarrassed. Song Qingshu smiled. "It's nothing, Brother Guo. You don't have to worry about it." Every time Huang Rong saw her husband thank Song Qingshu, she would be very upset, but she couldn't tell her husband, so she changed the topic. "Brother Jing, I heard you say that Han Xingzhou recommended you to be the deputy commander of the Front Palace Department. Jia Sherdao must have heard about it. Will he hate you because of this? Do you want to go to him and explain?" Guo Jing shook his head. "I didn't do anything wrong to him. Why should I be afraid of him? Besides, I serve my country wholeheartedly. I'm not Jia Sherdao's private minister. What's there to explain?" After so many years, Huang Rong had long known that her husband would stick to something he had made up his mind to the end. In addition, she thought that her husband was highly skilled in martial arts and had a good reputation. Even if Jia Sherdao was displeased, he wouldn't dare to do anything, so she didn't insist anymore. "Prince Song, we still have some private things to say between his husband and wife. Can you please leave for a moment?" Huang Rong suddenly looked at Song Qingshu with a burning gaze. Of course, no problem. Although Song Qingshu was smiling, he was very depressed in his heart. Huang Rong must have done it on purpose, but what could he do even if he knew that she did it on purpose? The couple was talking, so what reason did he have to stay here? Song Qingshu came to the back garden and suddenly heard a pleasant voice. "Who made you unhappy?" Looking back, he saw Ren Yingying standing not too far away, smiling at him like a flower. Under the morning sun, she was more beautiful than all the flowers in the garden. "My Yingying is still the best." Song Qingshu walked over and pulled her in his arms. He sighed inwardly at how meticulous she was. She could even see through the depression in his heart. Being held in his arms, Ren Yingying suddenly became shy and hurriedly pushed him away. "Don't do this. Someone else saw us." "Who would do that?" Song Qingshu said with dissatisfaction. "What's more, you're my legitimate wife. So what if someone saw us? Let me go." There really was someone. Ren Yingying's face became redder and redder. There was no one. Song Qingshu chuckled. Ren Yingying was very shy and reserved, and he liked to see her being so shy. Sister Yuan Yuan," Ren Yingying suddenly said awkwardly. Song Qingshu was shocked. He turned around and saw a beautiful woman standing at the corner of the corridor, looking at them with a faint smile. Who else could it be but Yuan Yuan? "I'm sorry to disturb you. You can continue," Yuan Yuan said and turned to leave. Song Qingshu couldn't help feeling awkward. He had actually heard someone coming, but he subconsciously thought it was a maid. He didn't know it was Yuan Yuan. Thinking about how he had angered her yesterday, he couldn't help feeling a little guilty after meeting her face to face. What if she complained to Ren Yingying and told her about his evil thoughts? Wouldn't his heroic image collapse with a bang? But on second thought, in Ren Yingying's mind, his image wasn't even close to being wise and mighty, right? Ren Yingying was embarrassed to be seen by Yuan Yuan. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but she pushed Song Qingshu away and ran over to grab Yuan Yuan's hand with a red face. "Sister Yuan Yuan, I have something to talk to you about." Finishing, she didn't look back at Song Qingshu and disappeared at the end of the corridor with Yuan Yuan. Song Qingshu stayed in place with a stunned expression. 3 months without water to eat. This problem would only get worse in the future. He had to think of a solution. "Reporting to Your Highness, Minister Han has sent someone to invite Your Highness to the Fu for a chat." A maid ran over from the distance and reported. "Understood." Song Qingshu thought about how Huang Rong and Guo Jing were chatting, and Ren Yingying was with Yuan Yuan. It will be depressing to stay in the Fu. It will be better to go to Han Kaijo's for some fresh air. They quickly arrived at Han Fu. Song Qing cupped his hands in greeting. What business does your husband have with me? Can I look for you if there's no business? Han Kaijo smiled. Someone sent me some good tea and asked you to come have a taste. It must be very expensive to be called good tea by your fiancé. If this was his previous life, Song Qing might have been very interested in these tea leaves that had a price but no supply. But now he only tasted a mouthful before putting it down. Your fiancé didn't call me here just to drink tea, right? It seems that nothing can be hidden from you. Han Kaijo smiled slightly. I presume that Qing Shu has heard that the court is preparing for a northern expedition. That's right. Song Qing Shu nodded, but his heart was a little heavy. Although he knew that according to history, Han Kaijo's northern expedition against the Jin would end in failure, who knew if this chaotic world would continue to develop according to history? He had to be ready to deal with the Southern Song's northern expedition. The Jin kingdom is strong and prosperous. I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to succeed in the northern expedition alone. So, we need Qing Shu's Golden Snake Battalion to help us, Han Kaijo said. Song Qing Shu thought, here it comes. But he didn't show it on his face. The Golden Snake Battalion has few soldiers. In a war between the Jin kingdom and the Song kingdom, our strength is far inferior. Han Kaijo laughed. Qing Shu, you are too modest. Didn't your Golden Snake Battalion annihilate the 100,000-strong Manchurian army? Also, Qing Shu, you can rest assured that we will be the main force attacking the Jin kingdom this time. Your Golden Snake Battalion only needs to attack from the east to the west and coordinate with the flanks. Song Qing Shu smiled bitterly. Because of the last war with the Manchurian Qing, we are like fire and water. We have to guard against the Manchurian Qing army at all times. I'm afraid we don't have much strength left to attack the Jin kingdom. You can rest assured about this, Qing Shu. Now Ping Shiwang Wu Sangue has allied with our Song kingdom and is now fighting with the Manchurian Qing. The Manchurian Qing are exhausted and have no energy to attack the Jin kingdom, Han Kaijo explained with a smile. Seeing that Song Qing Shu still had doubts, Han Kaijo continued, I can also tell you that there is actually another force attacking the Jin kingdom this time. Song Qing Shu instantly understood. Liao. The Mongols were now focusing on the western expedition. Xixiao had always been neutral and had a good relationship with the Jin kingdom. Tubo and Dali were too far away to help. So, only Liao was left. You are really smart, Qing Shu. Han Kaijo stood up and walked to the window, looking into the distance to the north. This time, our three forces will join forces and destroy the Jin kingdom to avenge the humiliation of Jinkong. Song Qing Shu smiled bitterly. If he had heard of the Southern Song dynasty attacking the Jin kingdom in his previous life, he would have raised both hands and feet in favor of it. But now that the Jin kingdom was in his pocket, he naturally had a different attitude. Liao. Song Qing Shu also looked to the north. In fact, he had a plan to deal with the Southern Song dynasty's northern expedition. But if Liao attacked from the north, it would be a bit tricky. Seeing that Song Qing Shu was silent, Han Kaijo thought that he had not made up his mind. He could not help but say, Qing Shu, you have been conferred the title of Prince of Qi and can be said to be a very high official. But the emperor has not betrothed you and the two little princesses. You should know why. Of course I know. Song Qing Shu sighed. In fact, Zhao Huan and Zhao Yuanyuan were both bargaining chips in the hands of the Southern Song dynasty. They forced him to work for them. Only after the crusade against the Jin kingdom was successful would the emperor decree the marriage. Han Kaijo nodded and said, Since ancient times, there has never been a precedent of two princesses marrying the same son-in-law. Only if you make a great contribution to the imperial court can you shut the mouths of the people in the world. I know. When the time comes, the Golden Snake Battalion will cooperate with the imperial court to send troops. Thinking of Zhao Huan, and Zhao Yuanyuan's frightened eyes, Song Qing Shu felt pity for them. At the same time, he secretly blamed himself. He had been in Linen for so long, but he had not visited them even once. He did not know how sad they were. As for the Golden Snake Battalion sending troops, it would be easy for them to do the work. Han Kaizhou did not know what he was thinking. He was overjoyed and said, "With your help, Qing Shu, there is no need to worry about failure." Ha! Seeing his high-spirited and excited look, Song Qing Shu secretly sighed. Han Kaizhou was too optimistic about the Northern Expedition. In history, before the Northern Expedition, he was also full of ambition. As a result, after the Northern Expedition, he was hindered by the political enemies of the imperial court. Coupled with the strength of the Jin Kingdom, it did not take long for the Northern Expedition to end in failure. Han Kaizhou was also killed by his political enemies. In the end, he was recorded as a traitor in the history books. Of course, Song Qing Shu could not tell him all this. Until he left the Han mansion, his heart was still quite heavy. "Well, although I will also ruin the success of your Northern Expedition, in any case, we are friends. In the end, I will save your life," Song Qing Shu secretly thought. At this time, suddenly a delicate maidservant trotted over. She first bowed and then said, "Young master, my lady wants to see you." "Who is your lady?" Song Qing Shu asked curiously. The maidservant looked around and said with some embarrassment, "My lady's identity is special, so it is not convenient to say. You will know when you see her." Chapter 14:24. The maidservant led him through many twists and turns, which made Song Qing Shu wonder if it was a trap waiting for him. However, they did not go to remote alleys along the way. Presumably, no one would be stupid enough to set a trap in a crowded place. After a while, Song Qing Shu followed the maidservant to a tea house by the river. There is a small bridge over the flowing water and willow trees. It could be considered quiet and elegant. "Young master, Madam is waiting for you in the private room upstairs." The maidservant continued to make a gesture of invitation. Song Qing Shu became more and more curious. However, he was not blinded by beauty. He did not go up directly. Instead, he stood where he was and quietly sensed the surrounding environment. When he did not find any ambush after extending his chi for dozens of feet, he smiled at the maidservant and followed. The maidservant led him to a private room upstairs by the river. "Young master, please." Song Qing Shu nodded and pushed the door open. He saw an elegant, dignified, and quiet young woman sitting by the window in a daze. When she heard the noise, she turned around and saw him with a hint of surprise on her face. Prince Song Qing Shu had already recognized her as Li Wan, the eldest young mistress of the Jia family. He could not help but smile bitterly. "Madam is really mysterious." Li Wan slightly bent her knees and bowed. There was a trace of apology in her eyes. "My identity is inconvenient. Young master, please forgive me for troubling you to specially come here." "I understand. How can it be considered a hardship to be able to see a beauty like Madam?" Song Qing Shu smiled. Li Wan was not only the young mistress of a big family, but she was now living at home in her youth. Naturally, there would be people who would make all kinds of malicious speculations and gossip. In order to reduce these things, she had to be careful in her words and actions. Therefore, she did not dare to look for him in public. She could only use this method to invite him to a secluded place. When Li Wan heard his words, she could not help but blush. She thought that he was a young man. How could he be so rash to say such words to a person who lived at home? However, when he noticed that the other party's expression was normal, without the slightest hint of lust, he realized that this was a different kind of praise. He couldn't help but laugh inwardly. No wonder many of the nobles in the capital privately called him the bandit leader. He really didn't care about these nobles' etiquette at all. If the young master in the capital had been rude to her on a normal day, she would have left in a huff. But today, she had a strange feeling. Maybe it was because of the sincerity in his tone. "The reason why I invited young master over this time is to ask." Before Li Wan could finish, she was stopped by Song Qing Shu. "I've come such a long way to see Madam. Don't I have a cup of tea to drink?" Li Wan slapped her forehead, pursed her lips, and said with a smile, "This concubine has been rude." She had already sent the maidservant outside, so she might as well personally pour tea for Song Qing-shu. "Thank you, madam." Taking the teacup from her hand and looking at her wrist that was whiter than porcelain, Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. It was a pity that she was born in this era where etiquette prevailed. It was likely that she would not be able to pursue her own happiness like those women of later generations. A few days ago, young master said that there was news of my eldest sister, Li Wan asked hesitantly after sitting down again. At the same time, she looked nervously at the other party, afraid that the other party would say that he did not know. Because in this short period of time, Song Qing-shu had been constantly distracted by various matters. He had not fulfilled his promise to tell the Li family about their missing eldest miss. The father and daughter of the Li family had even begun to suspect that he was deliberately finding an excuse to fool them in order to get the Li family's help. Now that Song Qing-shu had been promoted to Prince of Qi, his status was noble. Even if he went back on his word, the Li family could do nothing about it. As a result, Li Wan had been deliberately addressing him as young master, not Prince of Qi, in order to draw the two parties closer. "This was my oversight," Song Qing-shu said apologetically. "I have been busy recently and have not had the time to pay a visit. I have caused madam to personally come to find me. I am truly sorry." Young master is too polite. Sensing his sincerity, Li Wan's tense nerves finally relaxed slightly. "I'm only guessing about your eldest sister. Although I feel that I'm 70 to 80% certain, there's a possibility that you will rejoice for nothing. As a result, madam must be mentally prepared," Song Qing-shu said. Li Wan nodded. "This servant understands. Eldest sister has already been missing for 20-some years. We have also searched for 20-some years. In the end, we had already given up. This time, we were fortunate enough to obtain news of eldest sister from young master. As a result, regardless of whether or not eldest sister is found, young master is a great benefactor of our Li family." As she spoke, Li Wan stood up and bowed. Song Qing-shu hastily grabbed her arm, helping her up. "Madam speaks too seriously." Li Wan retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. A trace of redness appeared on her white cheeks. She stood there somewhat uneasily. Song Qing-shu could not help but sigh that he was a little impulsive. In this era, ladies from respectable families had probably never had physical contact with other men except for their husbands. Yet, he had rashly helped her up, but then he thought about it. Anyway, in those TV dramas, when men were injured, the male lead would inject internal energy into them through their clothes to heal them. When women were injured, the male lead would take off their clothes to heal them. This was called upholding the glorious tradition of the predecessors. "I wonder if eldest sister is doing well now." Li Wan came back to her senses. She tucked her scattered hair behind her ears, showing off the gentleness and charm of a woman. "You can say yes or no." Looking at Li Wan's surprised expression, Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. "Last time I chatted with you, based on her age and appearance, I guessed that your missing eldest sister should be Li Macho." Li Macho? Li Wan's face was blank. Obviously, she was very unfamiliar with this name. "She also has a nickname, Scarlet Serpent Fairy," Song Qing-shu explained. But he quickly reacted. "Madam is a lady from a respectable family. You must have never heard of these names in Jianghu." Li Wan looked worried. "Although I haven't heard of it, I think eldest sister is not living well." Song Qing-shu asked curiously, "Why do you think so?" Li Wan faintly sighed. Her voice was still very gentle. "A woman with the word Scarlet Serpent in her nickname obviously represents killing and hatred. But I believe that eldest sister is a kind person. Unless something big happened that caused her personality to change so much." Song Qing-shu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. "Madam is really smart. Just from a nickname, you can deduce so much." Back then, when Li Macho was young, she fell in love with a man called Lu Zhanyuan. He then told her about Li Macho's life over the years. "That Lu guy is really hateful." Li Wan bit her lips and said angrily. But she had a gentle temperament. Even when she was angry, she was not scary at all. Heartless and fickle. Hateful indeed. In Song Qing-shu's view of values, it did not matter if you provoked a girl, but you could not be irresponsible. So in his view, Duan Zhengshun, who flirted everywhere but was not responsible, was much scum than the stud Wei Xiaobao. Wei Xiaobao may be despicable, or maybe he only lusted after those women's beauty but did not love them. But he made appropriate arrangements for each woman. Unlike Duan Zhengshun, who caused so many orphans and widows to wander and lose their homes. But it is a bit too much for eldest sister to vent her anger on others and kill innocent people. Li Wan suddenly changed the topic. Although her voice was gentle, it was very firm. No wonder you are the daughter of the Imperial College Chancellor. You are well-educated and able to distinguish right from wrong. Song Qingshu could not help but praise. Li Wan's heart beat faster. She was not used to being directly praised by a man. She hurriedly said, "Where is eldest sister now?" "She is working for me now," Song Qingshu explained. "I arranged for her to help me at the headquarters of the Sun Moon sect. She should not have time to come to Lin for the time being." Li Wan suddenly looked disappointed. Song Qingshu replied, "I have been busy recently with the Southern Song Dynasty's northern expedition against the Jin Kingdom. I can't spare any time now. When I am free, I will find someone to replace your eldest sister's work and ask her to come to Lin to meet you." "Really?" Li Wan blinked her eyes, which were full of excitement. Song Qingshu could not help but laugh. "Don't worry, madam. We are on the same side. Why would I lie to you?" Li Wan blushed and muttered in a low voice, "Who is on the same side as you?" Even though her voice was very soft, Song Qingshu was able to hear her clearly. He couldn't help but laugh. "Li Macho calls me brother-in-law, so I am also your brother-in-law." "Brother-in-law?" Li Wan looked at him with a strange expression. "Well, Li Macho has a senior sister in her sect. She is my confidant," Song Qingshu explained. Li Wan pursed her lips and smiled. "I have long heard that young master is handsome and charming and is very popular with women. Today I know that the rumors are true." Song Qingshu could not help but tease her. "Does madam like me?" Li Wan's expression changed. She suddenly stood up and said, "Young master, please behave yourself." It was too late for Song Qingshu to regret. He was too used to flirting with her. But Li Wan had been a widow for many years. She cared about her reputation and integrity the most. How could she withstand this kind of flirting? "I was rude." Song Qingshu looked embarrassed. Li Wan declined to comment and lightly said, "Today, I have obtained the answer I wanted from young master. I will take my leave now." Finished speaking, she ignored the other party's attempts to persuade her to stay and walked straight out of the door, gradually leaving with her maid. Watching her slender back disappear, Song Qingshu picked up the tea on the table and drank it in one gulp. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Young master, why are you so discouraged? How can such a chaste woman withstand young master's dirty tricks?" At this time, a flirtatious laughter came from outside the door. Song Qingshu looked up. Soon a woman appeared at the door. She had phoenix eyes, long eyebrows, and a smile. She was about 22 or 23 years old. Her eyes were bright, and she was very beautiful. She had already taken off the Miao family's conspicuous decorations and changed into Han clothes. But the thing that did not change was her jade-like white complexion. "How did you know I was here?" The woman in front of him was Hitai Shou. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.